Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP is desperately trying to save her marriage. My husband doesn't see how his work wife is trying to destroy our marriage. I'm 31 female, am at my wit's end with my husband, Mark's, who's 32, coworker Sarah, who's 30, and his complete inability to see what's happening. I'm not usually one for Reddit, but I need to know if I'm going crazy here. I didn't start out suspicious of her. When she joined Mark's company 3 years ago, I genuinely tried to welcome her. I invited her to barbecues, and I included her in group outings. Big mistake. I expected awkward small talk and polite smiles. Instead, she spent the whole time throwing out comments that stung, but stayed just barely polite enough that Mark dismissed them. Like when she learned I teach yoga, she smiled and said, "Oh, you're just a yoga instructor? That must be peaceful." She said it lightly, but her tone felt like a pat on the head. Later, she commented on the food, telling me, "I guess not everyone can master basic seasoning. It's okay. Some people just cook for comfort." I kept trying to be gracious, but it felt like she enjoyed pushing the line. The part that shakes me the most isn't her behavior. It's the way Mark acts like I'm imagining things. Take the mug, the stupid, innocent anniversary mug. I left it at his office once, and one day it simply vanished. When I asked him about it, he said, "Oh, Sarah accidentally knocked it off my desk. She joked it didn't really fit the office aesthetic anyway." And he laughed when he repeated that to me. It was like the small meaning attached to it didn't register. It was a mug with our wedding photo on it. That's Sarah's style. Everything is a harmless joke. Some of her greatest hits. She schedules mandatory work dinners on days like our anniversary. She convinced Mark not to accept a promotion because the new role would move him to a different team. She posts photos of them on social media with hashtags like work spouse and work power couple. She tells their coworkers she takes better care of him than I do. She changed his coffee order without asking him and tells the office she trained him right. And Mark just laughs or shrugs, or says that's just how she is. I've tried bringing it up calmly. I've tried bringing it up firmly. I've tried asking him to imagine if the roles were reversed. He keeps brushing it off with phrases like, "You're reading into it," or "Sarah's just sarcastic," or the one that hurt the most, "You sound jealous." I wouldn't call it jealousy. It's more like watching someone claim bits of my husband in plain sight while he stands there smiling at her like we're in a sitcom. The worst moment happened a week ago on his birthday. Sarah was supposedly homesick. I decided to surprise him at work with lunch and a small treat. I walked in smiling, holding sandwiches and his favorite drink. There she was, perfectly healthy, and standing beside him with a cake that said, "To my work hubby," complete with a printed picture of them from their office holiday party. When she saw me, she smiled and said, "Oh, Annie, you came too. How nice. Mark, you didn't tell me your real wife was coming." Mark just laughed. I keep wondering if maybe I'm losing it. Maybe this is just what modern offices are like, and I'm too old-fashioned for the jokes. But every instinct in me screams that this woman isn't joking. She's carving out space in his life and pushing me into the background while acting like it's all part of some office-running joke routine. I suggested counseling. Mark looked genuinely confused. Later, a coworker told me he had talked to Sarah about it, and she called me insecure and told others we were going through a rough patch when we weren't. At least not until she kept pushing herself into every corner of our lives. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Divorce feels like a heavy word to throw around, but I feel like I'm running out of options here. ETA. I should have stated that the promotion wasn't one that would lead to an increase in his salary, but his title. It would give him more leadership experience. It still blows my mind that he turned it down just so he could stay on the same team as her. This is not actually a Sarah problem. You have a husband problem. Sarah can only wedge herself in because he lets her. If he wanted to shut this down, he could do it in a single sentence. Instead, he's enjoying the attention and pretending not to notice the disrespect. You need counseling because you two are clearly speaking different emotional languages. He's married to you, not her, so her opinion shouldn't matter at all when it comes to your home life, boundaries, or your marriage. Prepare yourself, though. Sometimes when someone gets addicted to outside validation, they don't want to let it go. I hope he snaps out of it, but you also need to protect yourself if he doesn't. Go to counseling, but make it clear to your husband that none of this is Sarah's business and that sharing details about your marriage with her is unacceptable. I'd even make it an ultimatum. I didn't agree to having 3 people in this marriage. Your actions show you're putting your relationship with your coworker above your relationship with me. We're going to marriage counseling, and this is not negotiable. If you care about our marriage, show me by committing to the work. And if you discuss any of this with Sarah, I'll move forward with separation. I'm not going to be vulnerable in counseling if you're running back to the person damaging our marriage, and I'm not debating with you about whether she's a problem. Save that for the therapist. Good luck, OP. You may also want to look a little deeper because it's very possible this is already an emotional affair, if not more. Update 3 days later. Before I spoke to my husband Mark again, I went through everything I could access. I know that's extreme, and I know it's a breach of privacy, but I needed to know what I was actually dealing with, not just the pieces he handed me. I started with his phone. There were months of messages between him and Sarah. She talked about me often. She made fun of me a few times. He didn't defend me, but he didn't join in either. The part that stung was how often he praised her. He told her she was brilliant. He told her she handled pressure better than most people. He talked to her like she was his safe place at work. I didn't see anything inappropriate. There was nothing about cheating, just a lot of emotional weight that should have been carried inside our marriage, not passed to a coworker who already disrespected me in front of him. There were also small things that added up in a way I couldn't ignore. He had lunch with her every single day. He talked to her about minor frustrations he should have talked to me about. He'd say things like, "I'm sure if you were a wife, you'd do this," when she did something thoughtful for him at the office. He didn't say, "my wife," though. It was always a wife, but it still upset me. And yes, the mug. She admitted in a message that she broke it on purpose. He didn't scold her. He just told her I was sentimental and laughed it off. I confronted him last night. I didn't throw accusations or raise my voice. I laid it all out. The lunches, the messages, the boundaries she crossed while he looked away, the things he shared with her about us. At first, he tried to brush it off again. He said I was being dramatic and too sensitive and that no lines were crossed. And I told him calmly that if he didn't take this seriously and have a real conversation with me, I'd file for divorce. That changed everything. He sat down. He actually listened, and then he finally talked about it. He told me that when Sarah joined the team, she tried to build this intense bond with every man in the office. He ignored it at first, but when she focused mainly on him, he liked the attention. He liked being admired. He liked feeling like the guy who got chosen. Other men were jealous of how much she catered to him, and he liked that too. He said it with his head in his hands, ashamed. He told me he didn't want her, but it was just about the rush of being important to someone who acted like he was the smartest, strongest person in the room. He said it spiraled, and by the time he realized how deep he was in, he felt trapped by the routine and the way it made him feel. He admitted it could absolutely be called an emotional affair. It hurt to hear that. I won't hide that. It was really painful, like I wasn't enough. I told him he needed to cut off contact with Sarah outside of work and transfer to another team or find a new job entirely. That's when he snapped. Now folks, I mean it when I tell you this. He lost it. He shouted and said I was controlling. He said he had never cheated and that I couldn't dictate who he talked to at work. He told me Sarah helped him manage his stress and that removing her would damage his mental health. He said I didn't understand the pressure he was under. It was cruel. It got so bad that I started crying. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to leave. I packed a small bag and went to my mother-in-law's. She's the only family I have here. I told her everything. She didn't take sides, but she said what he did was wrong and I was welcome to stay for as long as I needed. I've texted Mark to tell him that I'm safe. He calls every few hours, but I'm not ready to talk to him yet. I want to work it out. I love him more than anything. I'll try harder to answer comments in this post, and I'll definitely update if something new happens. This has been really therapeutic, and it makes me feel less alone. Update 2 days later. Well, I'm back. First, I want to address some of the negative comments. To all the people saying they're Team Sarah and hoping Sarah and my husband get together, I even saw a nasty comment saying Sarah and my husband would be the office power couple. How can you sit here and say nothing's going on? You claim my husband didn't cheat and I'm being crazy, yet in the same breath, you wish they would get together? You're contradicting yourself because deep down, you know something romantic was developing. Now for the update. My husband came to see me at my mother-in-law's house. She didn't call him. He came on his own, and he was nervous when he walked in. Before talking to me, he'd already had a long conversation with his mom. She told him plainly that I was a good wife and that letting a coworker wedge her way into our marriage was unacceptable. Hearing that from her seems to have shaken him. He told me he spent the night thinking about everything I said. He said he realized he'd been childish, that he liked the attention too much, and that the admiration got to his head. He said he didn't fully understand what an emotional affair was until he looked it up, and that was when he did. He recognized himself in every description. He was scared to let go of the dynamic he had with Sarah because he liked feeling valued and wanted at work. He told me he didn't want her romantically or even physically. It was the validation he was clinging to, like the pedestal she put him on. He said he didn't want to lose me, and he definitely didn't want to divorce, and he knew that he needed to fix it. Before coming to see me, he called Sarah. He told her they needed to step back from each other. No more outside of work messages, phone calls, lunches alone every day. He told her he would get a replacement mug with our wedding photo she wasn't to touch. And he told her I deserved respect and that the marriage had to come first. She didn't take it well. She insulted me and said I forced him to do this. Mark stopped her and said no, he was doing this because his marriage was important. She said she'd never want him, and she was only trying to help him out of a bad marriage because we weren't meant to be together, and she was trying to open his eyes. He realized then how twisted her behavior had been. He said he couldn't believe he had never seen how vindictive and awful she was. She was almost venomous. He cut the conversation off. After handling that situation, he came to see me, wanting to ensure I knew he understood and was taking the proper steps. He said we could do whatever I needed. He apologized and agreed to counseling. We agreed to stay separated for now. I'm leaving his mother's house and staying with a friend. I told him I wasn't jumping back into the same house and pretending things were fine. I don't want it to seem like it was okay to make me feel like I was the second option, to ignore all those red flags and brush me off. This has to be worked on. If he wanted our marriage to survive, we had to rebuild it. Some people online will say I'm wrong for giving him another chance, but in a real marriage, things are more complicated than a single mistake and a single consequence. He didn't physically cheat, but he hurt me badly, and we're deciding we're trying to fix it. We'll see where this goes. I'm not sure if anyone's going to want an update after this. Sorry it's so anticlimactic. Sorry it's the typical, oh, you just got back together? I mean, it is, but it isn't. I love my husband. I know he loves me. I don't think everything is an end-all be-all. Yes, it's a terrible situation. Yes, he did a terrible thing. But I want my marriage to last, so we're giving it another go. I genuinely hope this is my last update, but if not, y'all will know. Thank you for all the messages, all the support and everything. It's really been a huge help. Update 2 weeks later. Over the weekend, Sarah messaged several of Mark's coworkers, mostly the men. She told them he had suddenly stopped talking to her and implied that I pressured him. She said she felt awful for him and that she had only ever tried to support him through what she called a terrible marriage. She even claimed my influence was going to affect her ability to work comfortably. One of the female employees, who's always been kind to me, sent me screenshots. It was obvious Sarah was building a story where Mark was the victim and I was controlling. Things escalated that Monday. Sarah kept appearing wherever Mark was, but these weren't casual walk-bys. She followed him into rooms with fewer people, forwarded him emails that didn't need forwarding, lingered by his desk, and sat beside him in meetings even when other seats were available. She really wasn't trying to be subtle. It looked like she was laying groundwork for a possible accusation, the kind of manufactured pattern someone uses to create doubt later. And even now, some version of this still happens about every other day. Mark did go to HR right away. They told him they couldn't do anything unless it directly affected his work. They acted like he was overreacting, but he wasn't. We saw what she was doing, and so did the people who worked around them. HR just didn't want to intervene without a clear incident on paper. We've started talking about moving. His mom is the only thing keeping us here, and he's already considering transferring to a different company to get away from this mess. I'd like to give a little update about our counseling. To all the people who tell me that I'm making a mistake by giving my husband another chance and trying to work it out, I'm so happy I didn't listen to you. I understand it was a messy situation, but I lived through it. Anyway, in counseling, we learned a lot about why he got pulled in so deeply. He was bullied badly in high school, then had a glow-up in college, but the old insecurities stayed buried. Sarah is the type who mirrors everything back at you and makes you feel admired. He admitted that having someone like her talk to him as if he was exceptional gave him a sense of social approval he didn't realize he still craved. It doesn't excuse anything, but it explains how she was able to wedge herself into this emotional space. We've had lunch together a few times since then. I still haven't come back home, but we're doing it one day at a time. Like I said, I understand this isn't just a forgive and move on kind of situation, but hearing my husband talk about how it felt and the way it affected him, it made me have a lot more sympathy for him. He's scared of feeling alone in all of this, and I don't want him isolated while Sarah keeps escalating. I'm hoping this situation settles down soon, but if it doesn't, we'll deal with whatever comes next together. Your husband needs to document everything in writing the moment it happens. He needs to send it to management or HR in a paper trail they can't ignore. And both of you should consider talking to an employment lawyer. This kind of behavior can escalate fast, especially if she's preparing a he said, she said scenario. He needs protection in place before she pulls the pin. This isn't going to die down until your husband leaves that job. Sarah sounds like the type who won't stop until she burns the whole place down. She already admitted she thinks she knows what's best for his marriage and said she was helping him escape. That's enough to tell you she's not letting go quietly. She's going to blame everything on you and then blame it on your husband and make it 10 times worse. Either he transfers to another team or gets out altogether. HR won't act until she accuses him of something, and by then, it's a mess. I honestly hope the best for you and your husband, OP, but he really needs to get out of there.
That whole workplace feels like a sitcom, and this lady really tried to audition as the new wife.
She wasn't slick either. More like, I circled your cubicle 4 times this morning. Did you notice?
Yeah, she hovered like she thought HR promoted her to Mark Management.
My fiance doesn't care that my kitten has disappeared, and it's making me feel horrible. We're both 28. I'm using a throwaway and typing this on mobile because my fiance and I share a computer. We've been together for 5 years and engaged for 1. Anyway, 2 months ago, my grandmother gave me a 2-month-old kitten that was bred from her cat. It was her cat's only litter, and there were only 3 kittens. The cat itself is special because she comes from a long line of cats that have been in our family for a very long time, going back to the late 1800s. Yes, the cat is purebred, but we do not breed and sell them. The cats stay in our family. That's always been the rule. It sounds silly to some people, but having a pet lineage that runs alongside our family line is extremely special to us. My great-grandmother even jokingly made a little cat family crest with her cat on it. Everyone loved it, and we adopted it as a running family joke. It shows up at family gatherings and special occasions. Someone will print it on napkins or hang a banner, and it always makes people laugh and remember old stories. A month ago, my grandmother passed away, and it's completely devastated me. Having a kitten from her own cat has made me feel closer to her. In the last month, I've really bonded with this kitten. My mom received my grandmother's adult cat since she didn't have a cat of her own, and along with that one, there are only 4 remaining cats total in this line. 2 for grandchildren, 1 for my mom, and 1 for my uncle. That little group of 4 cats has become a strange but comforting way that my family has stayed connected while we grieve. Now for the problem, which still has me in tears while I type this. My fiance has never really approved of the whole cat tradition. He says that because these cats are purebred, we're supporting breeders and ignoring shelter animals. Like I said, we do not breed and sell them. They stay in the family and are treated like family pets. I have no idea where he gets this idea from. For context, I live in a rural area and I own my own house on a big piece of land. I've basically dedicated my life to helping animals. I help out the local humane society and take in farm animals and raise them until they find new homes. Right now, I have 1 horse, 3 goats, 4 rabbits, and a bunch of chickens. On top of that, I have 2 rescue dogs and 2 rescue cats that I absolutely love. So when he told me I was supporting kitty mills and unethical breeders, it felt insulting and weirdly unfair. Everything in my life is built around helping animals. He didn't start saying this until after my grandmother passed away. Before that, he just rolled his eyes a little at the cat family tradition, but never made a big deal. After she passed, he started making comments and seemed more and more bothered by the kitten. I assumed he would calm down and get over it. Instead, it's turned into a complete disaster. 2 days ago, I came home from work and my kitten was gone. I called her, checked all her usual hiding spots. I opened every closet and cupboard. She's still young, 4 months, so she loves to tuck herself into quiet corners, but she never stays hidden for long. After I checked the entire house twice, my stomach dropped and I went to find my fiancé. It was his day off and he'd been home all day. I asked if he had seen her. He told me he'd seen her earlier playing by the doggy door and that she must have gone outside. That was the moment everything inside me broke and I just started crying. I've basically been a mess since then. Those cats can't survive outside on their own. They don't know how to climb trees. Their coats are long and thick. In our heat, that can be dangerous. There are also tons of coyotes around. We keep our pets indoors or in safe fenced spaces for a reason. My fiancé hugged me and told me it would be okay and that we could look for her. We went outside with flashlights and searched until it got dark. We checked under bushes, around the barn, along the fence line, around the road, and nothing. Eventually, he said he was tired and wanted to go back inside. I didn't want to stop, but I followed him. Since then, every time I bring her up and start crying, he looks annoyed and shuts down. I'm devastated. It feels like he doesn't care at all. He hasn't really acknowledged how serious this is. He hasn't helped with posters. I started making flyers, and he refused to help put them up because he said no one lives near us anyway. In my mind, that doesn't matter. We live a bit spread out, but people still drive by. She could have wandered up the road. Someone could have picked her up and thought she was a stray because she's friendly and sweet. This big shift in his attitude has really blindsided me. I knew he didn't love the whole cat lineage thing, but I never imagined he'd be this cold. I asked how he would feel if it were one of our other cats, and he just said it was different because they've been with us for years. I feel like I don't even know who he is right now. I'm crying on and off. I can't focus at work. The kitten felt like my last little living connection to my grandmother, and now she's just gone. It feels like every bit of healing I'd started to do after losing my grandmother has been ripped open again. I don't know what to do. I want my kitten home. I want my fiancé to care. I want him to at least see how much this is hurting me. What should I do? How can I talk to him in a way that makes him understand how cold this looks from my side? Edit. I'm about to head into town to drop off posters before places close. I'm also going to try a suggestion someone gave me about putting her litter box and some of her things outside in case she's nearby and trying to find her way home. I'm going to FaceTime with my fiancé in a few hours. I'm hoping he'll be more open about what happened that day. Edit 2. I just spoke with some friends at the Humane Society. They know someone who has a tracking dog, and they offered to come out and help look for her as a thank you for the volunteer work I've done. I can't explain how grateful I am. I'm also about to call my fiancé now. I'll update after that conversation. Edit 3. I just finished FaceTiming with my fiancé. He could tell something was very wrong as soon as he saw my face. He asked if I was taking the whole kitty thing really hard, and I told him yes, I was. Then I laid out how important she is to me and my family. He got very quiet. Then he said he would try to come home tomorrow to help look for her. He apologized for the way he'd been acting. He said that in the house he grew up in, family wasn't a big focus, and crying or showing emotion was treated like a weakness. He said he was often punished if he cried, so he learned to shut down. I asked him again what exactly happened that day. He told me his mom had visited him that morning and lectured him about his life. She told him he wasn't doing enough, made comments about how he wasn't the one that wore the pants in the relationship because a lot of what we have is in my name, and kept picking at him until he asked her to leave. After that, he said he showered and kind of went on autopilot and doesn't clearly remember what the cat was doing or where she was. His mom isn't very involved in our day-to-day life, but she has very strong opinions and hates anything she considers fancy or showing off. She's made comments about me being spoiled, and she's always hated the idea of purebred animals. Now I can't stop thinking that she might be involved in my kitten's disappearance. I asked my fiancé if he'd be willing to talk to her about it, and he said he'd do whatever I wanted to do to find the kitten. I'll update tomorrow when he gets here. I'm hoping we can at least get some answers. Edit 4. The tracking dog is here to search. We've also talked more about what happened, and I'll write a full update in a few hours since this is getting pretty long. Update. My fiancé is back home now. Our friends from the Humane Society came out with our tracking dog. The dog was very sweet and thorough. She sniffed around the house, the doors, the yard, the edges of our property. She didn't pick up a trail that led away from the house. We don't know if that means she isn't trained enough for this kind of search, or if it means my kitten never went outside the way we thought. Everyone who was there leaned toward the second option. There should have been at least some kind of a trail if the kitten had wandered around out there. Either way, I'm very grateful they came. I never imagined that my volunteer work with them would come back around like this. People I knew from the shelter, plus a few locals I barely knew, all offered to help. Some of them put up posters I dropped off in town. The local vets now have her picture and know that she's missing. The shelter staff knows too. I've set out some of her toys and a blanket with her scent in a safe spot outside, hoping that if she's nearby, she'll be drawn back. I also had a long one-on-one talk with my fiancé. He opened up more about his childhood. He told me that in his house, everything he and his siblings did was watched and judged. Any sign of emotion was considered weakness. Hearing him describe it made me want to hug him and never let go. He said that growing up that way trained him to shut down when someone is upset. He was taught that was the worst thing you could do was show that you were hurt. So when I cried about the kitten, his brain went straight to the old ways. Shut down, stay quiet, and pretend it doesn't get to you. He talks to his mom about once a week. He told me he had spoken to her the week after my grandmother died. She told him he needed to stop acting like everything is about me and my feelings, and that if he kept catering to me, I would eventually leave him. She also scolded him about the kitten. She's the one who planted the idea that purebred animals are always a bad thing and that owning one makes you selfish. He said he had started to see the kitten as part of our family, but after that conversation with his mom, he felt torn. He started feeling guilty about loving her, because in his mom's eyes, that made him part of something wrong and cruel. That's when he pulled away and started acting distant and cold. I asked if he'd be willing to go to therapy with me on Friday and talk more about all of this. He agreed. He apologized for how he's been acting and said he understands that from the outside, it looks like he doesn't care. He says he does care and that he feels ashamed of how he handled it. As for his mom, he tried calling her several times. Every call went straight to voicemail. None of his texts went through. We realized he had been blocked on social media. That only made my suspicion worse. I really do believe now that she had something to do with my kitten disappearing. My fiancé is not a very good liar, and so far, he's answered every question with consistent details. He says that after she came over that day, she criticized him, insulted him, and he sort of mentally checked out. He doesn't remember if the cat was in the room when he went to shower. He said he feels responsible for not being more aware and that he wants to do whatever it takes to help fix this. For now, that means helping me look for my kitten and continuing to push his mom for answers. He's also talking about how to create some distance from her in general, because this is not the first time that her choices have made his life harder. Thank you again to everyone who commented. This has opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I'll update again if we find out anything new about my kitten or after our first therapy session. Edit. We're planning to go to his mom's house. My fiancé, my mom, and I will go together. We couldn't go today because of other obligations, but tomorrow should work. Edit 2. Sorry everyone, I couldn't go today. Fostering animals comes with responsibilities, and some of mine are sick. I can't leave on short notice without making sure they're properly cared for. I've made arrangements for tomorrow so I can have the whole day to travel to his mom's city and check her house. I know some people reading this want me to fix everything immediately, but that's just not possible. It hurts that I can't move faster because I want my kitten back more than anything. I'm still calling around and doing what I can. I'm going to sleep soon so I can leave early. I'll update when I get back. Edit 3. We're in my fiance's mom's city now. We got to her house around 6 in the morning and she wasn't there. For a moment, we honestly considered trying to get inside somehow because the anxiety was so high, but my mom talked us down. Later in the morning, my mom went and knocked on a neighbor's door around 10. They were kind and told us that my fiance's mom was gone for the week visiting her other son. That son lives almost 8 hours away. That was one of those moments where all the tension in my body turned into pure frustration. We're still in the city, and we've been stopping by local vets near where she lives, dropping off pictures and letting them know what happened. People have been sympathetic. We're also trying to contact his brother to see what he knows. We were able to file a police report in her city over the phone, which I'm grateful for. We're going to stay in town for a bit and keep an eye on the house in case she shows up. I'll update if anything else happens. Update 10 days later. Not a lot has changed since the last update in terms of actual results. I still don't have my kitten back. We've made posts about her and reported her missing using her microchip information. My fiancé and I have now been to therapy together twice. Overall, he seems to be responding well. He says it feels like a weight has been taken off his shoulders. He wanted me in the room for both sessions. They've been intense. His past is darker and more complicated than I realized. It explains a lot about why he reacts the way he does when people get upset or when conflict starts. I've noticed some changes already. He's more open now. He talks about things instead of shutting down. He tells me how he's feeling instead of going silent. He looks lighter in some ways. He plans to continue going to therapy on his own as well. As for his mom, things did not get better. We went back to her home after she returned from her trip. She met us at the door, already worked up, raising her voice, accusing us of showing up to cause problems. When we tried to calmly explain that my kitten was missing and that the timing lined up with her visit, she got louder. She accused us of spying on her, then she claimed we were trying to control her life. In the middle of that, she said something that made my chest go cold. She said she was glad my kitten is gone, because then I would finally know what it feels like when someone takes something important from you. She said I'd stolen her son, and that since he got with me, he had gone soft and stopped listening to her. She said she wished he had found someone who was more of a traditional woman of the house. Apparently, she hates that I'm the breadwinner, and it makes him look like he's a sugar baby. In reality, my fiancé does an enormous amount of physical labor around our property. He works long hours and keeps the place running, in addition to his regular job. If he weren't here, I couldn't do everything I do. While she was yelling, I watched him tense up and go distant. It was like he mentally stepped out of the room. I've never seen someone shut down so fast. It matched exactly what he described in therapy. When his mom starts, his brain goes somewhere else. My mom finally snapped and told his mom that she was being cruel and unfair, that she was treating her son like he was still a child instead of an adult with his own life. Things escalated when his mom stepped toward my mom like she wanted to start a fight, and my mom grabbed her arm to stop her. His mom yelled and started shouting that we were attacking her in her own home. A neighbor came out after hearing the noise. His mom immediately started telling them we had shown up to threaten her and to hurt her. She kept saying she wanted a restraining order. We decided to leave. My fiancé looked shaken and exhausted. Later, we found out she did file a police report against my mom. It looks like that will make it difficult or impossible to legally go near her house again. That makes checking her property for my kitten very complicated, which I'm sure she knows. Meanwhile, my fiancé's phone has been blowing up with calls and texts from his brother saying he betrayed the family and turned against their mom. All of this has been exhausting physically, mentally, and emotionally. I feel like I've been running in circles without sleeping. At this point, I don't know what our next step is when it comes to his mom and my kitten. We've done everything we can think of that doesn't cross legal or ethical lines. Therapy has helped us understand the pattern, but it hasn't magically made the situation disappear. Update 4 days later. I just got a call from a vet in a small town between where I live and my fiancé's mom's house. They have my kitten. Someone had brought her in to get microchipped. When they scanned her, they found out she already had one, and the info led back to me. Reporting her missing with the microchip worked. Thank you to everyone who suggested that. I'm crying now. I'm driving there now and will keep updating when I can. The person who brought her in is insisting she's their cat. I already know in my gut that this ties back to my fiancé's mom somehow. I want to press charges. I want there to be consequences. I know in my heart that my fiancé's mom either sold her or gave her away. I'm just trying to breathe and think clearly until I get there. I'm still a bit away and there's traffic. I need advice on how to handle the entire fiancé's mom part once the immediate emergency of getting my kitten back is handled. How do I go the full legal route right away? Do I wait and gather more information? Part of me wants to drive straight to my fiancé's mom and confront her. Another part of me knows we already have a police report and a complicated situation with her. Update. We just left the vet's office. I have her back. She was purring so loudly when they brought her into the room that you could hear her before you could see her. She rubbed her face all over me and is her happy little self now. I'm bawling. I missed her so much. When we arrived, the woman who had brought her in was there. She turned out to be a friend of my fiance's mom. No surprise there, really. She was determined to keep my kitten. We explained that we had already filed a police report and reported her missing with her microchip. I had all her paperwork, her CFA registration, her health records, and much more. The vet staff backed that up because the microchip info matched me. The woman was still fighting tooth and nail to keep her. I told her that if she didn't hand over my kitten, I'd call the police and let them sort it out because I had a full paper trail on my side. My fiance stayed calmer than I did and explained that we were planning to press charges against his mom for taking the kitten without permission, and that the woman could either be treated as an accomplice or cooperate and explain what happened. I don't think she fully believed we were serious until that moment. Then she changed her tone and started saying my fiance was a terrible son for considering legal action against his own mother. I told her that his mom had gone into our home without our permission and stole my kitten. She took something that wasn't hers. This is not something a loving parent does. My kitten also has a collar with a few stones on it, and that's still missing. And I kind of bluffed and said that it was like they stole jewelry too. The collar wasn't there, and I'm guessing she did something with it because she was fiddling, maybe to make my kitty look more like a random stray. During all of this, one of the vet assistants had already called the police. 2 officers arrived after a short time. They took statements from all of us. Because we had the microchip, the paperwork, the previous police report, and a clear timeline, it was very obvious the kitten was mine. The officers focused on that first. Then they took down details about the woman and my fiance's mom. We learned that my fiance's mom had gone to this woman who was feeling lonely and had talked about wanting a companion animal and offered to sell her a kitten. She said she only bought her for $50 and that my fiance's mom told her some version of the story, but didn't mention that the kitten already belonged to us or that she had taken her from my house while I wasn't home. The woman admitted that she had heard we were looking for the kitten, but still didn't want to give her back because she had gotten attached. She also clearly didn't know how to care for a cat like this. My kitten's fur was knotted and dirty. The vet checked her over and said she has a yeast infection in her ears that's making her eyes water more than normal and causing discomfort. He gave us drops to use twice a day for a couple of weeks. Other than that, she's healthy, though just a little thinner. She kept rubbing against my fiance too, and it was clear she remembered us. After everything calmed down, I took a moment to talk to the woman privately. I told her I understood wanting a companion and that if she still wanted a pet, I'd be willing to sponsor an adoption for her through the shelter. She seemed relieved and even a little embarrassed. She said she would like that. I think she just got pulled into something she didn't fully understand and didn't know how to step out of it once she realized it was wrong. As for my fiance's mom, the officer said that because of the distance and jurisdiction, any further legal steps would need to go through the San Antonio Police Department. They did note everything and said it helps that we already had a paper trail. Our next step will be deciding how far we want to push this. Part of me wants full legal consequences. Part of me just wants to close this chapter and focus on our life, our animals, and my fiance's healing. We're almost home now. I'm worn out and feel like I can take a nap for days. I've been waiting for this update. As a fellow cat owner, I felt your panic in my chest. That kind of separation is devastating, especially when the kitten means so much to your family. I'm so relieved she's safe and someone scanned her chip. Please give your beautiful little Fluff an extra big squeeze when you get her back home. She's been through enough adventure for a lifetime. I'm so happy your kitten is safe. But wow, this confirms the suspicion that everyone had. Your fiance's mom didn't just meddle. She literally took something from your home and tried to hide it. And now that you have all the details from the woman who got your kitten from your fiance's mom, the next step is deciding how far you want to take this. You've already done the hardest part, which is getting your cat back safe. I'd give yourself a little time to settle, then talk with your fiance about what comes next. His mom crossed a major line, and involving the police wasn't an overreaction. The good news is you have the paper trail and the microchip, so you're standing on solid ground. The bigger issue now is boundaries. Your fiance needs to decide what kind of relationship he wants with someone who's willing to do this. Whether you press charges or not, I'd think seriously about limiting her access to your home and your animals going forward.
Her fiance's mom didn't just cross boundaries, She went full supervillain over a 4-month-old fluff ball.
Meanwhile, the kitten was out here surviving side quests while the humans stirred the pot.
Am I the jerk for not telling my former fiancé I bought her dream house? 10 years ago, my fiancé left me, 38 male, a few weeks before our wedding. We grew up in a small town. We were friendly, went to the same school, but we never were in the same clique. She was one of the popular kids and I wasn't. A few years after college, I moved back home when my dad got sick. I found a job in my field about 45 minutes away from home. I would help take my dad to his chemo appointments. It was during one of those appointments I ran into X. She was now a worker at the hospital. One day while waiting, I asked her out. It turned out we shared a lot of the same interests. It seemed like our relationship was going great. About a year or so into dating, X and I moved into a rented house together. The following year, I proposed. We began looking for a house. X always wanted to live in her grandparents' house on the lake near our town. Her family was forced to sell the house when her grandparents passed because of an inheritance dispute. 6 months before our wedding, a chance event happened. The couple who bought her grandparents' lake house had grown tired of our snowy winters. It took some work and nearly all of my savings, but I was able to buy her dream house. It was going to be my surprise wedding present, so I didn't dare tell her or anyone in her family my plans. A month before our wedding, X and her friends went to Miami for her bachelorette party. I'm not sure of what all happened down there. Part of me doesn't really want to know, but I do know her high school boyfriend was there. When she got back from the trip, she broke down and confessed she was afraid to get married and wanted to call it off. It was a mess. She later moved to Florida and eventually married her high school boyfriend. I ended up moving back to the city for an amazing job. In the meantime, I still had the lake house. With the help of my mom and dad, we started to fix up the lake house. It took a few years. My mom and dad would look after the contractors while I was in the city. Having the house was perfect when everything was locked down. I was able to escape the city and work remotely from the lake house. I now live here full-time and I work remotely. This summer, we had 4th of July at the lake house. My sister-in-law used photos from the lake this summer in her Christmas card. One of those cards made it to X's cousin. The cousin recognized the house. The Saturday before New Year's, X's mother and sister were at my front door. After pleasantries and answering their initial questions, they made an offer to buy it. I refused. They weren't happy. A few days later, I got a long text from my ex. This was the first time in about 9 years she's talked to me. She called me a jerk for keeping this from her. Her family is blaming her for losing the house again. She then asked me to sell. I still have no intention to sell. Now her and her family are complaining on social media that this is some sort of revenge. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your intention was to surprise your ex with the house at the wedding. If you had called off the wedding, I'd reconsider my judgment, but she is the reason why she doesn't have access to that house. On top of that, you've made the house your own. Enjoy it. I would be petty and post on social media the date on the contract when you purchased the house and explain that if it wasn't for ex cheating on you and leaving you for her now husband, this would have been her house as a wedding gift. But instead of having it be a painful memory of the hurt she caused you, with the help of your family, you were able to bond with your family even more by working on the house together, and that this house will now always stay in your family for generations to come. The audacity of your ex and her family is crazy. Now after you and your family spent a decade fixing it up, they're trying to lowball you out of the house. And when that didn't work, they took it to social media to complain. Not the jerk. I would post the entire story on social media and then block everyone in that family. Would I be the jerk if I skipped my sister's wedding? I, 23 male, am one of 7 kids. There's Lydia, who's 31, Josh, who's 28, Leo, who's 25, me, then Aaron, who's 21, and Nadia, who's 18, and the surprise baby, Lexi, who's 4. With that many siblings, it's easy to get lost in the crowd. Some of us have our positions, so to speak. Lydia is the oldest, Lexi's the baby. I have a kid. Yes, that's my description. OP gave us a grandchild. Erin is the golden child. She was the last planned kid, the one supposed to tie up our family. She was born premature, so I understand that my parents coddled her to an extent, but it's more than that now. Erin's getting married and recently told us that she's brought the date forward due to a cancellation. No big deal, it just means they're getting married sooner. But the new date lands on the date of Nadia's high school graduation. Erin was sympathetic, but said she's already committed to the date. They've printed the invitations. My parents normally go overboard on our high school graduations, but they said that they just have to miss Nadia's. We were all sympathetic, but it wasn't intentional. Or so I thought. But Nadia later told me and Leo that she was there when Erin got the call about the cancellation and told Erin that she was graduating that day, but Erin just laughed and accepted the date anyway. This, as much as I hate to admit it, sounds like a very Erin thing to do. She booked her engagement part for the night of Nadia's 18th birthday. Luckily, she wasn't celebrating until the weekend. She announced her engagement at my oldest sister's wedding anniversary. Everything is about her. I confronted Erin about this, and she said that Nadia's high school graduation didn't matter. She wanted to get married to the love of her life sooner, and our family had been to plenty of high school graduations at this point. She said something like, "We still have Lexi." But here's what gets me the most. Nadia's been looking forward to this for so long. She's watched all of us graduate and have these huge celebrations thrown by our parents. I asked Nadia what she wanted, and she said she wanted to have her day. So I told my family that me and Nadia won't be attending the wedding. Leo has also dropped out. Everyone's angry, Erin is furious, and I didn't make it better by telling her that I could watch our other siblings get married, since it's all the same in her eyes. Mom's trying to convince me to come to the wedding because graduation isn't as important. But I feel like if I don't do this, then it sets a precedent in Nadia's life, and she's always going to mean less than Erin. I've had messages calling me a jerk, an idiot, etc. They're telling me to step up and be a good brother, but that's what I'm doing. My son is supposed to be ring bearer, but with how my family's reacting, I'm considering pulling him out of the wedding too. My dad's told Nadia he'll take her to dinner after the wedding. Nadia is currently staying with me because mom won't stop cornering her. Am I the jerk? Update. It's 2 days after D-Day, and I finally come bearing an update. Last Friday, Leo and I went to speak to our parents and Erin. I wanted to tell them that I'd be pulling my son from the wedding. Our older siblings ended up turning up as well, so it was 4 of us standing up for Nadia. Leo had spoken to them the night before and helped them see things more clearly from Nadia's eyes. Apparently, it didn't sink in with them that Erin chose the date intentionally. There was a lot of yelling. Erin accused me of trying to sabotage her wedding. Our parents tried to convince me to let them take my son to the wedding, but I stood my ground. I felt a lot stronger with my older siblings behind me. There's only 2 years between me and Erin after all. I'm not much of an older brother. Luckily, Lydia was there. Her words carry more weight as the eldest, and she didn't give Erin or my parents room to argue, as she told them that Erin chose the date intentionally, admitted as much in front of me and Leo, and that this was normal behavior for her. Lydia told them that if they continued to favor Erin so blatantly, the rest of us would go no contact and Lexi would likely follow in the future. Our dad started yelling, not at us, but at Erin, surprisingly. I've never seen him so angry before, and to see it directed at Erin was shocking. Our mom asked us to leave. We didn't hear from anyone on that side until Monday when Erin's fiance George asked to meet us at our parents'. He apologized to Nadia. He didn't know that the wedding and graduation overlapped, nor did he know that it was something Erin did on purpose. Our dad was the one to tell him. What followed was a long talk between us, during which we all aired our grievances. I told our parents that we all felt that they valued Erin more, that none of us mattered to them compared to her. Her artwork always went up on the fridge, ours always went in the drawer. I told them that, as a parent, I could never imagine treating my kid like that. Erin tried to argue. She tried to tell us that we were trying to turn her into a bad guy, trying to turn our parents against her, trying to sabotage her wedding. Our mom told her to be quiet, that it was our time to talk. George stepped in to tell us he didn't expect us to attend the wedding, but we were welcome to attend the reception. He went so far as to say that he wished he could have canceled the wedding altogether, but it would only cost him more money than he had spent by bringing it forward. Mom's willingness to hear us out lasted less than 24 hours. By Tuesday, she was begging us to reconsider. Apparently, our feelings meant nothing in the face of Erin's dire stress and the fact that people would be questioning our absence on the big day. I haven't spoken to my mom since, but I did ask my dad to bring me some of Nadia's things because she's going to be staying with me full-time. We have officially gone no contact with our mother. Dad took Nadia out for an early graduation celebration on Wednesday. They spent some time together that I think she really needed. He apologized for a lot of things and told her he wanted to do the same with the rest of us. But Wednesday was about her. I'm happy she got that one-on-one time with him. She was happy coming home to me. In our sibling group chat, she said that she really thinks Dad is going to try and mend bridges with us, even if Mom won't. Dad also turned up early yesterday morning, like 6:30 a.m., to give Nadia flowers. He told her that he was proud of her. George even called while he was getting ready for his big day to congratulate Nadia, which I really appreciated. We didn't hear from Mom or Aaron. Our paternal grandma ended up coming to the graduation with us. It was a great day, like a really great day. We didn't think about the wedding, didn't think about Aaron. We just had fun together. My son got to wear his aunt's cap and gown and nearly drowned in the fabric. Our grandma tried on the cap too. We took photos and sent them to our dad, who posted them in a Facebook post he wrote to congratulate both Erin on her wedding and Nadia on her graduation, and we laughed about how it must have upset our newly wedded sister. We went out for dinner, and we as siblings gifted Nadia money for a week away with her best friend, which somebody suggested in the comments. I texted George my congratulations. Despite everything, I do hope he and Erin are happy together. While she might not love us, I don't doubt that Erin loves him. Yes, she wants her spotlight and her moment, but I don't think she's marrying him just for that. Bringing the wedding forward? Sure, that's a hugely malicious tactic to bring herself more attention. Marrying him for the sake of having a wedding? She isn't that type of narcissist. As of right now, I plan on staying no contact with my mom unless she makes some big changes. This is a sentiment shared not only by the majority of my siblings, but also encouraged by our dad and grandma. She's tried reaching out to me and my partner, mostly going off on us for not attending the wedding and accusing us of planning to keep her grandbaby away from her. At the moment, our summer looks busy. We're planning on filling it with as many family outings as possible before Nadia leaves for college. We've also got Josh's 29th birthday to plan. Our dad is even joining in. This might cause a bigger rift between him and Mom, but for now at least, it looks like we're his priority. Lydia's threat really did something to him. I hooked up with someone else during a break, and now my wife is changed. My wife and I, both 40, have been together for 15 years. The past 3 years were turbulent, and we fought all the time until about a year ago when we decided we needed time apart or to separate. We chose the first option. The first period, we went no contact at all, but then we started texting, then meeting for lunch, etc., and dates. We talked about the problems. I felt miserable without her, and I hoped she did too because I missed her every day. The problems that we always fought about, the mundane stuff, was so trivial now, and we talked about how our issues were really non-issues. She said she loved and missed me so much, and I felt so much relief that she felt the same way, so I confessed that I was miserable without her, and how our problems were nothing compared to not being with her. We made a plan to reconcile, and a month ago she moved back home. Before we separated, we discussed what we are allowed to do during our separation. She said that she didn't want to hook up with anyone else, but that I was free to do so because we will be legit separated and she doesn't have a right to decide over me while we aren't a couple. I hooked up twice with a colleague of mine. It wasn't good and I regretted it, so I ended it. It basically wasn't worth it. When my wife moved back, she asked me if I did something. She didn't. I told her the truth and she was silent for a while and then said that it was fair enough and not cheating because we already discussed the possibility. Since we've talked about it, she's been distant. She says that she is happy and that she missed home, and I too missed her, and I haven't been this happy, but I don't know. When I ask her, she says she's fine and not to worry, but I don't know. I have caught her crying a few times, but she says it's the news and the world's condition. Now it seems like she doesn't even want to hook up with me anymore. I don't know how to solve this. I don't know if I'm imagining things, but even a hug or a kiss, I feel her going rigid in my arms, but she insists it's nothing and that she's just not in the mood or tired. What if your wife had hooked up with other people? OP. The thing is, that's why I discussed this subject with her before we separated. I was terrified that she would hook up with other people because I know my wife to be the kind that wants an emotional connection before getting physically attracted. I had nightmares about it, so I needed to ask to see what we were supposed to do during the separation. I don't need any emotional connection to hook up. I regret it, but I told myself that we had agreed to this. I feel that I have cheated seeing her reaction now, no matter if we had agreed on this or not. So the hookup wasn't good with a coworker, and that's why you decided to end it? I didn't mean the hookup wasn't good. The whole thing wasn't good because it wasn't what I wanted. Update. My wife is not fine with what happened. She started crying immediately when I tried talking to her. She said that she didn't know if she will ever forget or forgive. What surprised me is that she seemed to put the blame on herself. She said it was all her fault because she started this whole separation idea and then agreed to me hooking up with others like she tricked me somehow, and now she wasn't fine with what she had agreed upon. She apologized and said that she knew she was being unfair, but that she couldn't help how she felt now. I tried to explain that it wasn't her fault at all, but I'm not sure she's convinced because she keeps saying that it was her fault and that she's being unfair. I don't know what to do. I can't see her broken like this. Update. She said she couldn't do this anymore, and she apologized because she believes that it was all her doing because she felt like she tricked me and gave me permission. She's the love of my life, and I regret everything, including the break and the small stupid stuff that made us fight and take that break. She moved into a hotel. We decided to wait about telling our families until after the holidays because our broken hearts are enough. We don't need to break their hearts too. I just don't know what to do. I've lost everything. This is my update for those of you who asked. I'm sure you will find it satisfactory given the amount of hate that you've given me on my original post. Crazy concept, I know, but if you're still married to someone, how about just not hooking up with someone else? That would make far too much sense, Karen. Don't forget, we're on Reddit. My soon-to-be ex-husband humiliated me on our wedding day and met his karma instantly. It's been 2 days since my wedding day. I had already been with him for 4 years, 1 year of which I was engaged. It all started a few months earlier when I noticed my husband Jake watching prank videos. Among other things, these videos showed embarrassing photos of the bride being played on a projector in front of the whole room or the bride's face having cake in it. I told him straight away that I didn't want anything like that in our wedding. He just laughed and said that he wasn't planning anything like that. I thought that was the end of it, but I kept catching him making a strange arrangement with his friends. He suddenly wanted to choose the wedding photographer and the cake. I thought nothing of it and was just glad he was helping me with the wedding prep. Nevertheless, I reminded him the day before that if he did something like that, I would break up with him immediately. When the day of the wedding came, everything went smoothly until the ceremony. Until the moment came when the cake was to be cut. The whole room watched as I made the first cut and the photographer stood in front of both of us with his camera. Suddenly, I felt a hand on the back of my head pushing me face first into the cake. Not only my makeup, but the whole wedding dress was ruined and the whole room laughed. My husband was laughing the loudest. At that moment, the photographer took the photo and Jake said that this was now our wedding photo. I turned around, I slapped him, and ran out of the room in tears. Thank God karma didn't take too long to arrive and came in the form of his own brother. I ran to the bathroom and started crying when I suddenly heard loud shouting from the hall. It was his brother, Frank. I could barely understand what he was saying, and when I left the bathroom, he was waiting for me. He told me that Jake had something to tell me. Jake was shaking and apologized without looking me in the eye. Frank told him to look me in the eye and apologize again. Even I was a bit scared of Frank at that moment, because I had always thought of him as kind and a gentle man. I had never seen him angry before. Jake apologized again, and then Frank led us back into the hall, which was suddenly very quiet, and most of our families looked down at the floor, a little embarrassed. The festivities were cut short, and I was taken home by Frank because I was too angry with my husband and I didn't want to see him. During the ride, Frank apologized for blowing up like that. He explained that my husband was horrible even back when he was a brother and used every special occasion to humiliate Frank. When it was Frank's birthday, my husband would throw cake at him and break his presents. But back then, their parents always brushed it off by saying that's just how brothers behave. So he had to endure every humiliation. But when he saw my husband do this to me, he was fed up because he realized that my husband was just a bad person who got his satisfaction from humiliating others. I asked Frank if he thought it would be an exaggeration if I separated from my husband, and he said no, because according to him, I deserved better, and he didn't care how his brother felt about it because he had brought it on himself. Then he told me that if I needed help collecting my things, he would help me and gave me his number. And I decided to separate from him and file for divorce and inform Jake and my family about it. Jake just told me not to do that because it was just a harmless prank. I was spammed by both his family and mine that it would be ridiculous to end our marriage over this, but I see it differently. If he does something like this to me despite multiple requests not to do it, even after promising he wouldn't do it, then I can't trust him, no matter what he promises me. I have to assume that the opposite can and will happen, and that he doesn't care at all how I feel about his decisions. This situation can be projected onto so many much worse situations where it would be important for me to be able to trust him. His brother Frank seems to be the only one who supports me now, and I will go through with the divorce. Call me humorless, call me what you want, but I have given my reasons. OP, I'm sorry this happened, but I'm so proud of you. You warned him multiple times, and he felt it was more important to get laughs than to be a trustworthy partner. I don't know why people think humiliation is a prank. If you have to explain that it was a joke, it's not funny. Best of luck. P.S. Please let Frank know he's a good man, and we appreciate him having your back. How do I, 40 male, tell my kids who are 12, 15, and 17 that my infidelity is the reason for the divorce? I'm here for genuine advice, looking especially for advice from people who have been in the same situation. I know I messed up. I don't need anyone to tell me again. 2 years ago, my ex-wife, who's 40, found out I had been cheating with my current girlfriend, who's 29, and immediately divorced me. We had a very civil split and both agreed not to tell our girls what led to it. A year ago, my girlfriend and I started renting walking distance from my ex-wife. This has muddled our 50-50 custody agreement, as my girls sometimes come over while on their mom's week and sometimes go to their mom's on my week. They basically come and go as they please from both homes, but generally sleep at the custodial parents' house. My girlfriend has recently taken issue with this. She doesn't like that they come over without asking and that we get no kid-free time. She's asked me to enforce a boundary with my girls that they cannot come over on their mom's weeks unless we explicitly invite them. I told her absolutely not. I pay 100% of our living expenses, and I'm not going to make my girls feel unwelcome in a house that I pay for. She then made the comment that maybe they wouldn't want to come over anymore if they knew what I had done and with who. I've decided it's time for them to know the truth. I can't have this threat hanging over me. How can I do this? What do I say? Do I involve a third party? Should their mom be there? I just don't know how to admit I blew up all of our lives for nothing. Has anyone gone through this with their father and came out with an intact relationship? Edit. Just breaking up with my girlfriend is not a solution to this. I'm afraid she will tell them out of spite whether we are together or not. She sounds like she doesn't understand you had a family before you hooked up with her and what being a parent entails. She sounds selfish. Her threatening to tell your girls that is awful and malicious. The pain she would cause them is unnecessary. My ex-husband cheated on me a lot, and to this day, my adult kids do not know about it. They don't need to know that. Their dad may have hurt me and broke up our family, but I already processed the pain from the cheating. They don't need to go through it themselves. You have to ask yourself if you really like someone that would be willing to do this so she can have it her way. Planning date nights and keeping those plans would have been an easy thing to ask for. When you have kids, privacy is really not super existent. You can still prioritize time with her without creating a storm with your kids. She doesn't sound mature enough to properly have a conversation about making some time for you guys to have dates and spend time together without asking you to enforce the kids staying with their mom on her time. Not to mention, you both hooked up when you were married originally. Not only did you step out, she was okay being the side chick. That says something about her character. Life isn't a competition to see if you will pick her first. First it was your wife she was competing with. Now she has an issue with your kids. OP. The problem is that during the first 6 months of our affair, before my ex found out, I was a bad father. I would go on business trips all the time and was basically an absent father. I think she expected I would be a weekend dad rather than want 50-50 custody, and it was a shock to her to spend much less time with me than before our affair was discovered. I will be breaking up with her for a multitude of reasons, but her understanding of our family dynamics, me never being around, has contributed to this, as her expectations were based on a version of a father I didn't want to continue being. Even when you tell your girls, you should still break up with your girlfriend. She sounds like a monster, and threats prove that she's a bad person. Why isn't she contributing to bills? OP. I will be breaking up with her regardless. She's not contributing to bills because it's always been that way. I'm not stupid. A hot 26-year-old doesn't hook up with a balding old guy near 40s for his personality. This has always been a transactional relationship, but I stayed because I felt like at least I lost my family for something. And people have said, well, at least they're still together, they were meant to be, etc., which made it seem less bad somehow. I'm aware this is stupid. Probably need to know why you cheated before we can come up with a solid answer. OP. I don't think it matters. But we had been together since we were 13, and our relationship was generally great, even almost 25 years later. In therapy the past year, I realized that my problem was she has always been better than me at everything growing up and into adulthood. Better at sports, got better grades, got into a better school, better scholarship, everything. At the time, she was also frustrated with me because I refused to leave my workplace for a job that paid significantly more. She never made me feel inferior, but I myself felt that I wasn't enough for her. My fault, not hers. When I met my girlfriend, I felt superior to her because I had more money and was more educated and intelligent and had more materialistic things, and it was an intoxicating feeling. Even though I knew she was attracted to my money, in my value system, I was still superior and had the upper hand, so to speak. I felt like a big man. It's pathetic, and I'm trying to unlearn the way I think about people's worth. Secondary to that, she's not more attractive than my ex-wife physically, but I had only been with 2 people. And the second was a one-time hookup when we broke up briefly at 21. She was very interested in me and persistent and decently attractive, and that coupled with my ego led to an affair. It's not an excuse, it's something that could have been prevented by communication and therapy, but I was a different person a few years ago. Update. I took everyone's advice and involved my ex-wife in the situation. Safe to say, she was upset at my poor choice in partners and having to deal with this BS. But we got together with the girls at ex-wife's house and told them. Many of you suspected they already knew. Incorrect. Apparently, they thought we broke up because of my job and my refusal to accept a new one. We did not lie to them during the divorce and tell them an untrue reason. We just told them that relationship issues are private and we would be willing to have a discussion when they were all adults. So thankfully, there's no trust lost in my ex-wife, which some of you were concerned about. All my girls were incredibly upset. They were being cordial with my girlfriend because their mom encouraged them to be civil, but apparently they hated her. They couldn't believe I would give up my wife for her, our family, and their stability, which is fair. They're refusing to see me for now. My ex and I are going to get them into therapy, and I'm hopeful that over time we can rebuild a relationship. My oldest is furious and has sent me some scathing messages and then blocked me, so I'm really concerned about her and I. I miss some of her huge life events due to my affair, and I think that will be hard for her to forgive. As for the girlfriend, she's gone, plain and simple. She has her next partner lined up and is moving to be with him. I can't say I'm hurt about that, which shows how little I cared for her. I just feel relieved. A bunch of you suggested getting back with my ex-wife. Unfortunately, that topic has been breached when the affair was discovered, and she's 100% uninterested. She takes her job as a mom very seriously, and in her mind, the girls would eventually know and it would be setting a bad example for them to take back a cheater. Even independently of that, cheating has always been a deal breaker for her. I feel bad as she was planning on moving her partner in, and now she feels like she has to delay it until the girls are in a better place. She was really angry with me, especially for that reason. In her anger, she's also let it slip that her and her partner are planning on marrying in the next few years and having another baby. She's never shared anything personal with me, past allowing me to meet her partner before the girls did, so that was a shock to me. I'm trying to process that information. That hurts more than my girlfriend cheating and leaving, which tells me I have a lot more work to do in getting over her. It's been a sobering experience for me. Thank you to everyone who legitimately gave me advice. It was helpful. If I could in turn offer some advice, don't cheat on your partner. The grass is greener where you water it, and if I had taken the time, effort, and energy I gave my affair partner and invested it in myself and my wife, I would be incredibly happy right now. And as for a side note, to all the men messaging, commenting, congratulating me for getting a younger woman, that doesn't matter. I've never looked at my ex-wife and thought she was old or unattractive. She was better than my ex-girlfriend. This had nothing to do with getting a younger woman. It had to do with a self-destructive ego that has led to the most important people in my life hating me. Everything else was irrelevant. Don't get caught up in it. My wife demands I buy her boyfriend a plane ticket. My 40 male wife, who's 34 female, and I have been separated for almost 2 years. It's long to explain all the details, but during lockdown, she realized she wasn't happy about her life as a housewife and she wanted to do more stuff before becoming too old. I met her when she was in college, and we've been together for a long time. We are not getting a divorce, and she says everything is going to come back to normal eventually once she feels that she's ready to move on from this new stage of her life. She now lives traveling across Europe, doing different ways of charity work and environmental activism. She has had many small jobs during her travels, mainly as a waitress, but I also still help her a lot. Our marriage is now open in many ways. I haven't been with any other women yet, but I may do it if I find the right one. At first, she was just with random men, but she eventually started having more stable relationships. She's been with her current Greek boyfriend for 6 months. The issue is that she was meant to come home for a few days so she could be at our daughter's 13th birthday. I had already bought her a plane ticket, but then she decided she wanted her boyfriend to come too. I have no problem with him coming, but I didn't think I should be the one paying for his ticket, especially so late because it would be more expensive. As soon as I complained, she just said that she's not coming anymore because she doesn't think that I could be mature enough to handle the situation, and she prefers for me to send our daughter to visit her for a few weeks during summer. I tried to negotiate with her, but she was fully set in her new idea and didn't care about anything I had to say. Now my daughter's angry at me because she really was looking forward to seeing her mom, and because of me, she will have to wait for months. I don't think it's fair to blame me, and I feel that it's cruel that my daughter is now being so cold with me. I also miss my wife, and I'm sad she's not coming. But my daughter thinks this is something I did on purpose because I'm jealous of her new boyfriend. I don't think that that's true, but I do feel guilty because my complaints were the thing that started this whole conflict, and now I've damaged my daughter's enjoyment of her birthday. Am I the jerk? First, get a lawyer, then a therapist. Your marriage is over, and your wife is a manipulator. Stop waiting for her, and don't let your daughter put this on you. This is all on your wife. How dare she expect you to pay for her boyfriend's plane ticket? I wanted to throw up when I read this. Also, your wife is manipulating your daughter. Tell your daughter if her mom wanted to be there for her birthday, she would come alone. That you will not be disrespected in your own home or pay for her boyfriend's plane ticket. It may be harsh, but your wife is damaging your relationship with your daughter. If she cared about your daughter, she wouldn't have left. Not the jerk. Tell your daughter that her mom has a ticket, and if she chooses not to use it to see her daughter on her birthday, then you can't make her use it. Tell your daughter you're sorry if this is what happens. Dude, your marriage is over. You and your daughter have been abandoned. I'm so sorry. Get a lawyer. Get a therapist. Not the jerk, except to yourself. Not the jerk. Your wife is being immature, and she's picking someone she's known for 6 months over her 13-year-old daughter. If he really had to be there, she can buy his ticket. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Maybe I need to discover who I really am. Maybe I should find a new boyfriend. What you think about that, Reddit boy? If it gets me a break from you, I'm all for it. What? Cancel the service? You bet. I work in roadside assistance as a third party for a lot of insurance companies. Like most customer service jobs, we get a lot of mistreatment. But most of it comes from long wait times and/or not being fully covered. This happens often, but I very rarely am in the position where I get to see the fallout. Recently, I had a woman call in. She was completely pleasant, but in a huge rush, so she was a little snippy. No worries, I get it. But then it comes to letting her know that she is not covered for assistance and she has a huge out-of-pocket expense. She whines about the fact that she knows she has roadside assistance. Then that she supposedly set the service up earlier, so not only am I trying to charge her, but it's taking too long, and therefore the price should be waived. Finally, she gives up and tells me I'm useless and says, "Just cancel it," and hangs up. Being the good rep that I am, I call her back to confirm the disconnect was intentional. She picks up, then hangs up immediately, then sends me to voicemail on follow-up calls. So, as instructed, I canceled the job request. I should note, intake doesn't take long, but it's annoying to go over, and if the customer doesn't know their exact location, like being on a freeway, it can take some time. A few hours later, I get a new call from an angry customer wondering where her service is at. I apologize for the frustration, ask for her reference number, and inform her that unfortunately, there isn't any service in the system. She starts going off. I do my best to calm her down and extract the needed information. Halfway through the call, I realize it's the same angry woman as before. When we start going over location, I remember the drop-off location, and she gets excited and says, "Oh, you found my service? Is the driver on his way? It's ridiculous that it's taking this long. You should get this prioritized or expedited." To which I reply in my nicest customer service voice, "No, ma'am, your service isn't in the system. I remember when we spoke earlier. As you requested, I canceled the job at that time, so it's only getting open now and the amount will be this much." Her, "That's more than it was earlier." Me, "Yes, the pricing changes throughout the day to continuously match the market, stay competitive, and incentivize drivers to continue taking jobs at unpopular times." She doesn't say anything. Me, "Also, we have a longer ETA at this time, so you will want to get this payment taken care of ASAP so we can find a service provider to avoid a longer wait. I can send a text message to you to complete the payment." She stutters. But I never told you to cancel it before." Me, starting to lose patience. "Ma'am, our calls are recorded. I notate obsessively, and I called you back multiple times trying to confirm." "I want to speak to your supervisor." Ranting, trying to make me scared. Me, "No problem, one moment. It looks like there's currently a 20-minute wait for a supervisor. I'm happy to wait with you." Her, "Fine then, get my service started." Me, Certainly, I'll send the text for payment. She finally broke down and paid it and gave up waiting for a supervisor. She lost it up and down that she was going to report me. Either way, I felt vindicated with my tiny bit of malicious compliance. Am I the jerk for telling my mom no one asked you to have another kid? Background: I'm 16, male, and I have two parents. My mom's 38 and my dad's 40. I have three younger sisters who are 14, 2, and 1 due in March. I'm in high school. It's my junior year. I'm doing well and passing my classes. I have mostly A's. I'm making honor roll every year, and I'm a good kid in school. I wouldn't consider myself a lazy person either, as I work out 3 to 5 times a week. I wrestle during the winter. I clean the house 2 to 5 times a week. I don't normally socialize often outside of school, as I don't feel motivated to do so. So then I just stay inside and either play my game, read, study a language, or pray. 3 years ago, my mom and dad both worked. My mom used to work around 50 to 80 hours a week to catch up on bills. Oftentimes, she would come home tired and would sleep during the day, while my dad worked around 40 to 50 hours a week and would be tired too. Oftentimes, my mom would complain about no one doing anything around the house and calls me and my sister lazy. I usually don't say anything to those complaints, but sometimes I get irritated and say I actually clean around the house and that you only sleep, so of course you wouldn't pay attention. Moving forward a year or so, when my mom announced that she was pregnant, I was kind of irritated because she would always complain about bills and how she needed to catch up on them. I proceeded to say, "How are you going to say you need to catch up on bills, but then have another baby?" I can't remember what she had told me, but a month or two later, the reason she wanted to have another kid was because I love being a mother. In my head at the time, I kind of saw it as selfish, and she didn't want to be alone. I wanted to work over the summer and be a little bit more independent, as I'm only a few years away from being a legal adult, so I asked my mom if I can work. She says yes, but she needs to get money for an ID. The next thing you know, she never gives me my ID to work. My mom complains that I go out a lot and give my attention to my girlfriend instead of my little sister, or the things around the house, saying I don't do them well. Many times, I don't have a problem with playing or watching my sister, but at times, my mom makes it seem like I'm obligated to watch my sister anytime she's tired from work or sees that she's struggling. And she once again says she pays for everything, and all I do is ask for items just because I clean the house like I'm supposed to do. Which I feel is it isn't true, because I hardly ask for anything. One comment she said was I can walk to school. Mind you, it's the winter, and when I wanted to walk to school, she said it wasn't safe to do so. And she won't be paying my phone bill anymore, as it's her money, and have my girlfriend pay it instead. I made the comment, when I wanted to work, you said no because I'm not ready, then started yelling at me, telling me to go to my room while slamming the door. Not the jerk. You're a good kid. Why isn't your father helping if she needs help so much? I understand expecting kids to do chores, etc., but it sounds like you're already doing that, whilst your mother, assuming you will do everything else, that you're not responsible for. Not the jerk. If your parents were struggling to take care of the 2 kids they already had, they shouldn't keep having them. Am I the jerk for not calling my wife's daughter to invite her to Christmas? I, 63, male, lost my wife, Beth, who was 60 at the time, 3 years ago. We'd been together for 30 years. When I met my wife, she was already a widow. Her first husband had passed in an accident. She had a daughter, Jane, who's 43 now, who was 6 at the time that her father passed. Jane was about 10 whenever I married Beth. When I came into Jane's life, I had no idea how to be a parent to her. I expressed my fears to Beth, and she said to just let her take the lead. I talked with Jane, and I told her that I knew I could never replace her dad, and I wasn't trying to. However, I would be willing to do all the dad stuff that her dad wasn't around to do if she wanted. I drove her to practice, attended every performance, stayed up late to help her study for math tests. I taught her how to drive and how to shoot. Shared my love of fantasy literature and Star Trek. Our relationship was always hot and cold though. While she seemed happy, I was never dad or stepdad or even Uncle Sam. I was always just Sam. Beth and I had a son, Tom, who's 32, and a daughter, Christy, who's 29. Jane has a reasonable relationship with her half-siblings considering their age difference. A year or so after Christy was born, Jane became sullen and despondent. After talking with Beth, I offered to adopt Jane. Jane did not take this well, and I never brought it up again. I was the main disciplinarian parent in our household, And while none of the kids were troublemakers, they all did things that got them grounded or their privileges with our cars taken away. I think Jane resented this as well. When Jane graduated high school, each student was able to purchase 2 tickets to the ceremony. Jane purchased 2 tickets, and I thought I would be attending. But the week of the ceremony, Beth told me that Jane wanted to use her second seat to memorialize her father. I was hurt, but I understood. She put a picture of him on the empty chair next to her mom. I think it also hurt Beth as well. Jane was an excellent student, and she got some good scholarships, and I paid the remainder of her cost to go to college. I did get to see that graduation. When Jane got married, Beth and I were not able to pay for the entirety of the wedding. We paid for about half. She had her father's younger brother walk her down the aisle. She would spend a week or 2 during the summer with her father's family. At the reception, my wife was again seated next to an empty chair to memorialize Jane's father. I was not given a seat with Beth at the family table, and honestly, I don't remember where I was supposed to be because I spent my time at the bar or standing behind Beth, who was having a very hard time. However, it was a lovely wedding, and once the dancing started and everyone was out of their seats, I stopped worrying about where I was supposed to be. When Jane had her first kid, Beth and I were overjoyed. However, I soon learned that while my wife was going to be Gram, I was not going to be Grandpa, but still just Sam. I'm Sam to both of her kids. This was again something that hurt, and when Tom had his first kid, he asked if I wanted to be Granddad or Sam to his kids, and I jumped at getting to be Grandpa. Jane ended up getting divorced about 4 years ago, shortly before Beth was diagnosed with cancer. She and her kids moved in with us, and we helped her with her lawyer until everything was finalized. During my wife's last year, Jane was with us all the time. It was a huge help to both Beth and I. After Beth passed, I was a wreck and mostly useless. It wasn't right, but Jane ended up doing most of the funeral preparation. I'm very grateful for the help she provided. When Jane's father had passed, her mother had helped with the funeral expenses and had purchased a double plot. When Jane prepared the funeral, she organized everything so that Beth would be buried next to Jane's father, her first husband. I was shocked and felt that this was done somewhat behind my back. My wife had never told me of this, and Jane assured me this was what Beth would have wanted. I talked with Tom and Christy, and they know that I intend to be cremated. Because of that, they thought that this was reasonable, and the plot was already paid for. At the memorial service, Jane was rightfully upset. She told many of the other mourners that she was now orphaned and that she and her 2 kids had no close family left. This upset Tom and Christy a lot, but I tried to explain that it was different for Jane. I talked with Jane during the memorial, and I told her that she does have a family that will welcome her if she wants it. She thanked me and was polite. I've not really talked with Jane since the memorial. The first year, I invited Jane to all of the family get-togethers just like before, even though Tom and Christy were angry with her. I left her voicemails asking how she was doing, how the kids were. However, the last couple of years I have stopped because I never get any responses. I still send her and her kids gifts for their birthdays and Christmas, I just don't actively reach out. One of the last voicemails I left, I told her all she needed to do was call and I would help her. With all that information, here's where I might be the jerk. My daughter Christy is getting married next year. She reached out to Jane in the past few months and has been working on reconciling with her. Additionally, Jane's ex lives in a different state and her kids will be gone for most of the holidays. Jane has told Christy about how alone she's feeling. Christy called me and asked me to invite Jane to my house for Christmas. Christy and her fiancé will be there along with Tom and his family. I told Christy that Jane knows she is always invited. Christy says that Jane won't come if I don't call and ask her to. I told Christy that she could invite Jane or she could tell Jane to call me. Christy says I'm being the jerk for not calling Jane. I talked to my son Tom and he says he's tired of the rest of us having to beg Jane to be part of our family. I love Jane, she's my daughter, but after so much, I just feel like the only way this will work out is if she takes the first steps. So, am I the jerk for not calling my wife's daughter to invite her to Christmas? Jane, if you see this, just call. Edit. I'm astounded by all of these comments. I thought I would just get a few, but there are too many to answer them all. I do want to clear up some things though. I tried to be the best parent that I could be to Jane, with Beth's help. I never wanted her to feel like our family was not also her family, or that her family had been replaced. I never felt like an ATM machine. I paid less than half of Jane's schooling because of her scholarships. I did what we could for her wedding, and yes, I was upset about the seating and who got to walk her down the aisle. But Beth reminded me it was her day, not mine. I will be paying for a larger share of Christy's wedding than I did Jane's because my financial situation is different now. But Christy has asked for some things I think her mom would have fought with her over already, but that's a story for another post. I don't think I did anything that would make Jane resent me besides marrying her mom. However, Jane has, except for a few occasions, always been polite and friendly to me. Maybe I shouldn't have put the wedding stuff in the post at all, but she did have a not father-daughter dance with me at her wedding. When Beth passed, Jane told me that her mother was amazingly lucky to have found true love twice in one lifetime. When I offered to adopt Jane, it went very badly. Beth and I had set her down and made the offer. We thought that after the birth of Christy, she was feeling left out. It backfired horribly. Jane said she didn't want my stupid name. I tried to explain that she wouldn't need to change her name, but she started screaming at me that she didn't want my stupid name, family, or anything else. Both Beth and I told her that this response was completely unacceptable, but she kept saying nasty things that teenagers say to both me and Beth. I told her that her behavior was totally unacceptable, and since her mom had lots of class and manners, that this behavior must come from her stupid father's family. Beth told me that I wasn't helping, and I left while she talked with Jane. A couple of days later, Jane asked to talk with Beth and I privately. She said she wanted to move in with her uncle. I figured this was a hollow threat from a teenager since that uncle lived 2 states away, and her life and friends were all where we lived. I said something like, "Well, if that's how you feel, you and your mom work it out, and I will make it happen." I then left. Jane didn't move out. I did tell her that I was glad she chose to stay with us. Our relationship did get better, but never substantially improved after that point, so I'm not a saint. I'm human. I did my best. Not the jerk, and I'd leave it. You've spent the past 35 years being the bigger person here. Understandable when she was a kid and she chose your role in her life. But as an adult, she's fine taking your money, but then treating you like an outsider. If I, with my spouse, had paid for half of her wedding, but then there wasn't given a seat with my spouse or with my family, I'd have said enough. She then, when you were grieving at your most vulnerable, had your wife buried somewhere without your input. All of these actions are to hurt you and are frankly fairly despicable. You've been more than kind. It's exhausting just to read this and see how much you've done. I agree with your son. You have set yourself and your whole world on fire to keep this ungrateful jerk warm, and still left the door open. It's on her now. The only thing as an outsider I think should have been done was take Jane to therapy. Sounds like Jane wants everything her way and when she wants it. OP. Getting therapy was different in the 90s. I know Beth got her some help after her dad passed, but long-term, it was just not as available as it is now. It also would have meant taking her out of classes and activities a lot, and people told us, mostly Beth, that keeping her busy was the best thing. Update. So Christmas has come and gone. For those interested, here's the update. Most people said it was time for Jane to face the consequences of her actions. Did Jane deserve to spend Christmas alone? Perhaps, but I didn't want my girl to be alone or sad when I could do something about it. So I called and once again got sent a voicemail. I left a message saying that I didn't know what her plans were, but that she should know that she is always welcome at our house. I figured that would be it, and I could tell Christy that I tried. On Saturday, I got a call from Jane. She seemed very down. She told me the same things I had heard from Christy. Her kids would be out of state with her ex for Christmas and New Year's. She was feeling very alone. I told her she's always welcome to come celebrate with her brother and sister and myself. She said that sounded really good and she would like that. Jane, Christy, and her fiancé spent Christmas Eve with me. It was really nice. Jane was very sweet to everyone. People were so busy attacking Jane before, and my post maybe was not fair to her, but Jane can be an incredibly caring person. Jane seemed a little on edge at first, but as the evening went on, she became more at ease. We watched A Muppet Christmas Carol, just like when my kids were younger. After my phone call with Jane, I found Tom, Christy, and Jane's old stockings. There was not a lot of time, but I got some candy, a book, and a couple of gift cards for Jane, Christy, and John. On Christmas morning, all three were a bit surprised to find that they had stockings filled with goodies and called me a jerk for not telling them beforehand so they could make sure I had one too. I said I was not involved, and you can't call Santa a jerk, or you get nothing, just like me. Tom and his family came over on Christmas Day. Jane practically knows more about what's going on with Tom's kids than I do because she's very active on Facebook. Jane's gifts that she got for everyone were very thoughtful. Jane is great with kids, she's a teacher, and Tom's kids really enjoy their aunt, although they did ask where their cousins were, which made Jane a bit sad. Jane and Christy made our Christmas dinner, and seeing giggling like schoolgirls in the kitchen together reminded me of Christmas long ago when Christy was 7 or 8. Tom found me in my office. He said that Jane told him that I called her. He said that he was glad I did, that he was not sure he would have been willing or able to make the call. I told him I bet if it was his kid he would have. That's probably enough of my family Christmas. I know that the real update is the talk that I had with Jane. Tom and his family went home because his kids wanted to play with their new toys. Christy and John left to meet John's family for a late Christmas meal and get together. As Christy was leaving, she gave me a hug and told me, "Merry Christmas, Daddy." When I turned around and saw Jane, I could see dread on her face. After everyone had left, Jane asked to talk with me. We had a long conversation, and I'm going to hit the important parts. Jane said she was very thankful to be invited for Christmas. She told me that when she started dating after her divorce, because of her age, she met a lot of guys who had older kids like her own. Many didn't think trying to blend families with older kids was a good idea. I guess they figured the kids would be out of the house soon, and they had co-parenting relationships that worked for them. However, Jane has her kids pretty much all the time. A large factor in her divorce had been that her husband had a view that his job was more important than their kids' lives. She wanted to be with someone who would show her kids, especially her son, that a family is not just a thing that women care about. Apparently, as her longest relationship was spiraling, she had an argument with her boyfriend where she said something like, and remember, I'm paraphrasing a story she told me, "What's so hard about stepping up and being a good dad? My stepdad was able to do it, and he didn't have any kids of his own when he married my mom." To which said boyfriend said something like, "You mean the guy you treat like crap and your kids treat him badly too?" She says that after that fight or relationship or whatever, she kind of started thinking about our relationship, things I had done for her and that she had done as well. She told me she feels embarrassed and ashamed, that she didn't know how to even start to fix anything, and she thought Tom and Christy and I were mad at her. Jane asked me if we could have a relationship like I have with Christy and Tom. I told her that I cannot give her a replica of my relationship with Christy, that none of us can change the past. I told her that for me, nothing has changed from that afternoon at the park where I told her that I would be willing to do all the things her dad was not around to do. I will always be as much her dad as she wants. Jane was crying by this point, and I held her. She started crying harder and saying she was sorry. I told her that I know and that everything's okay. In the middle of this, something happened that I've waited a very long time to hear. The sobs of, "I'm sorry," became, "Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Well, one apology and a good cry doesn't change a person. The next morning, I was mostly back to being Sam, but there were a few dads and even one daddy sprinkled in. We'll see. Some other things I'm guessing people will want to know. We did talk about her mom's funeral. She said that she didn't mean to do anything secretive. By using the plot that was paid for, they saved on some costs and were able to get an encasement as well. The encasement should make it possible to have my cremains interred with my wife. Also, I guess a down payment has been made towards a headstone for me that can be integrated with my wife's. Finally, her youngest was apparently upset that Tom's oldest called me Grandpa all the time at the funeral and thought that it meant I liked Tom's son more than him. That was years ago now, but she said she will be bringing it up, that Grandpa Sam situation with her kids. I said I would like that. In all of this, Jane never tried to say that it was her father's brother or any of the rest of her father's family who didn't like me or made her act like she did. There was no outside influence, just a scared girl who wishes she could have done things differently. I know many people said that she wouldn't really change. I know change is very hard. Maybe after the holidays, everything will just go back to being like it was. However, even if that's what happens, I at least got one Christmas day when Jane wanted me to be her dad. Also, Jane knows that I'm posting this and said it was okay. Shout out to the former boyfriend that forced Jane to take a good look in the mirror. Today, I asked her father for his blessing to propose to her this coming weekend, and he said no. Background: we've been in a relationship for 5 years and living together for 4, and this is the best, most satisfying relationship I've had in all of my life. She works in the healthcare industry, and her kindness towards those in need and less privileged than her is what drew me to her in the first place. In the last 4 years between us, we've had some little fights, but only one big one. The fight happened in October of 2014. She planned for a lunch with Carl, which I had to miss because of work-related emergency. He called me later that night, saying that I don't show him the respect he deserves, and I'm always trying to get out of family events because I don't want to be around him. Which is not true, because half of the planning and organizing on his birthday was on me, and it was a big event. In the morning, I told my girlfriend about his call, and she brushed it off as him being drunk. The next weekend, when we met at her parents' place for dinner, Carl was extremely hostile towards me, but I kept silent about it, until he said that I should not have missed the lunch. Every other Sunday is family dinner at her folks' place, and I rarely miss it, so I didn't think it was a big deal. I apologized to him and said that I would make up for it in another way. At the next dinner, I brought a bunch of smart wearable accessories for him because girlfriend was interested in them. He refused to accept the gift, and when I insisted, he walked out saying he needs some air. I had no clue what was going on, and girlfriend's mom was mortified, apologizing to me over and over for Carl's behavior. When we got home, I asked girlfriend if there was something going on which she was not telling me. At first, she tried to brush it off, but then she said that it was my fault for not seeing that her father was not interested in being buddies and wanted my respect, not friendship. This was a complete surprise to me because I never really thought of him as anything more than her father. We would just watch the game together sometimes and chat about it later, but that was the extent of our social interaction. Girlfriend said I needed to earn his respect, and I told her I had done nothing wrong. That's when the fight started. But a few days later, Carl called me and said he liked the watch and other accessories. That's his way of declaring truce, I guess. After that, I was always extra careful to not miss any events with him. Last June, girlfriend's mother passed, and it was an incredibly difficult time for everyone. I tried to be as supportive towards the whole family as I could. I cut down my work hours to spend more time with them. Girlfriend and I started cooking the family dinner at his place because she thought it would be better for him to see the house alive with people again, and we made it an every week event for just a while to spend more time with him. Multiple times, we made extra effort to host family events, and once we even flew his elder sister over for his birthday. I had thought he would warm up to me a little, but I guess I was wrong, which brings us to today. Girlfriend is away for the week on work-related stuff, so I planned the whole proposal. I was gonna decorate our apartment like a planetarium with stars and planets and write, "Will you marry me?" in the stars. It's from Friends, which she's obsessed with. I wanted to start the preparation with his blessing because that way he would feel good about me asking him first and he'd feel included also. I planned a lunch with him for today to ask for his blessing. I told him how much respect I had for him and that I wish one day I could be as good a father as he was. Then when I asked for his blessing for the marriage, he blew up. He was absolutely livid, saying that his daughter deserves a better man and that he never really liked me much and had always hoped the relationship would end. He said all the sucking up I was doing last year had shown him that I just wanted to appear like a good man to girlfriend and didn't mean any of it. I was so shocked because this is not how I expected it to go at all. I left him, still spewing, and went to one of my friends' places. Told him and his wife everything, and they're just as shocked as I am. I spent the day at their place and got home about 2 hours ago. Not sure how to proceed now or even what to do. Should I tell my girlfriend that her father said no? Should I proceed as if nothing has happened? For now, I'm drinking and playing video games. What should I do, Reddit? Update 3 years later. I'm not sure what I will get out of this. I feel like writing it all down and having a stranger over might give me some mental clarity, but I think at this point, there's no way to salvage our marriage. I've been in a relationship with my wife for almost 9 years now, married for 2. Our relationship has been, for the most part, fulfilling for both of us. It seems like I'm making a self-congratulating post, but we've become better people by virtue of being together. I'm an old-fashioned person, so it was difficult to meet a woman who liked the things that I liked and had the opinions I had. The only unsavory part of our relationship over the years has been my relationship with my father-in-law. My wife and I rarely have disagreements, so the only fights we've had were about her father. I want to be clear, I don't hate him. I respect him. He sacrificed a lot in his personal life in order to provide for his family and to make sure my wife was raised with love and care. I used to look up to him in the earlier years of our relationship. He and my mother-in-law would host the family twice every week, and it took me by surprise how close they were as a family. I really liked the events, and everything was just great. Early on in the relationship, I think I freaked out my wife by how much I enjoyed being at her parents' house. Her mother was a saint of a woman who gave me so much love from the get-go. She would always make sure I was included in family activities and often reserved a seat for me at the family dinner right next to her, talking to me like I was one of her own. The reason I bring up my mother-in-law is because I think she was the reason her husband was accepting me at the time. She passed 4 years ago, and it somehow changed him. It was like his filter was gone. He would stay in his room a lot, only come out for his errands and walks. He wouldn't watch the games with me, saying that I talked too much. He wouldn't let me fix anything at the house, despite me practically living there and having done a lot of work in the house in the past. A popular theory among my friends was that he hated me because I was too close to his wife, which sounds absurd. She was a maternal figure in my life, and I can't for the life of me understand why that would upset him. She was nice to everyone. My wife is nice to everyone too, to the point of it being a fault. My mother-in-law used to say that she had 4 sons, her son, 2 husbands of my wife's sisters, and me. So it's not like I was inappropriately close with her. I've discussed this with my wife a lot too, but she's always insistent that my relationship with her mother has nothing to do with it. At the time, my wife and I started talking about marriage, and it felt right. I don't think I was ever more sure about anything than about marrying my wife at the time. There was a brief moment before the engagement where she and I got into a fight, but things worked out nicely. We got engaged in May, and it just set things in motion. My wife is the youngest in her family, so she had a lot of positive attention from her siblings. They had kept her mother's wedding accessories for her, which honestly was a nice thing to do. And slowly over the months, it became this big and happy event in our family. Winter of 2016, we got married. My wife sat me down and asked if it would be okay to move back in with her father to take care of him. I think that was the moment where I made the stupidest decision of my life when I said yes. I was blinded by love, not just for my wife, but for her family, for the mother who I missed so much, for her father who liked me but never really accepted me, and for her siblings who liked me like I was their own. I just thought about what would be best for everyone else. A month after we moved in, my father-in-law asked his son if he could come stay with him for a while. At the time, it felt like a good thing that he was moving past the grief of his wife, but I don't think that was why he visited his son. He just wanted to get out of the house because of me. A few weeks later when he got back, his passive-aggressive BS started again, but this time it was just constant nagging over small petty things. I moved the chair. No, I didn't. I broke the thermostat. No, and I changed it for good measure. I forgot to put the tools back. I messed up the library. Things like that, almost as if I'm a kid who's unwanted in this house. May 2017, we had a huge fight, and I gave my wife a choice to either live with me or live with her father. That made her have a fight with her father, and she decided she was going to move out because, in her own words, he's never going to accept you as his son. He's delusional in grief. So we moved out, but still lived close by because both our jobs were quite close. After moving out, however, it messed up the whole family dinner tradition as her father refused to come to our place for dinner. And we couldn't afford to host. Maybe you just need to cut contact with this guy. He sounds like a piece of absolute dog doo. Why are y'all still messing with the guy? Get him out of your life. Why do people deal with this kind of crap? Update. Divorce. I've been reading a lot of the relationship help books, and I try to talk to my wife many times. However, the fact is, she and I just don't work as a couple anymore. Well, gee, I wonder why. I'm no longer a priority in her life, and I'm not okay with it. So last month, I decided to talk to my lawyer and initiate divorce. It's been a really stressful time, especially from almost all of her family. But at this point, I just want to look after myself and recover myself from this relationship. Update. After our divorce, I lost a lot of family and friends. I was very involved with family on her side, and losing them all at the same time because we got divorced made things difficult for me. I'm an immigrant here, so I did not have many friends outside of my ex-wife's family. During the divorce process, the lockdown started, and that ruined all of my relationships with her side of the family. I was really lonely for a long time. I tried to go on dates, but the dating culture is so different now than 15 years ago. I could not find a person I wanted to spend more time with, but I think it was in part my fault too. And the one person who showed interest in long-term dating, she was much younger than me. I did not like her friends, and her friends were not thrilled with me either. So that relationship ended in 2021. Since then, I've stopped going on dates even, and I've lost touch with some friends and acquaintances because of lockdown. Or maybe because of age and not having a wife. Like, they're all family men now, so making time is difficult. But anyway, I saw my ex-wife a few times in the last 2 years, and we exchanged some quick words about well-being, but nothing substantial. I know she lost her father during lockdown, and I told her that I was sorry for her loss because he loved her very much. She also told me she was dating a younger man and it was going well. However, we never sat down for tea or anything. It just never happened. But 2 months ago, I got a message from her saying she wanted to meet for lunch. During this lunch, she told me her relationship of 1 year and some months was not going well, and she was thinking of breaking up with her boyfriend. She and him did not agree on kids or not having kids, and she did not see a future with him. We kept in touch through the last 2 months, and 12 days ago she broke up with him. She told me a part of the reason was that after talking to me, she remembered how it was with me when we first started dating and how it was not the same with her new boyfriend. She and I have been talking a lot in the last few weeks. Since the breakup, the first thing she does after waking up every morning is message me. And then 2 days ago, she called at 7 in the morning saying she was at my door with some food. I've been feeling ill, but I don't remember when I told her. However, she came with a lot of home-cooked food and soups, which she knows that I like. It felt like we were back in time 10 years ago. It's been a very confusing time since then. I'm not sure what I feel. I think I'm starting to love her again. She pays me so much attention, which is nice. She also keeps sending food or bringing it herself. And then last night, she spent the night because I was too ill to get up and clean after myself. Nothing happened between us, but at the same time, I think she wants to talk about us dating again. And I will admit, all the attention and food and other gestures of love and care, they're starting to feel incredible. I'm not sure who to talk to about this. I think I need to keep her away for a few days to be able to think clearly. But it has been so long since I have felt this good about myself. And a lot of our relationship problems were from how her father acted with me. So I keep thinking maybe we can try again, and this time it will be better. Any advice or anyone who wants to help me here, I would really appreciate it. Update. On Saturday, she came over to talk about our relationship and what we both wanted, what went wrong, etc. She asked to speak first, and I really should have talked first instead, but I let her say her part, and it was focused on her relationship with her whole family, how important her father was to her, how much involved everyone else was in her relationship with me. She said she was sorry for letting her family, and her father in particular, meddle in our marriage. One of the things which hurt me a lot was that she mentioned that her ex-boyfriend never wanted to be around her family and hated going to any family events or even to a simple dinner, etc. She said that's when she realized how much easier I had made things for her in our marriage. It was incredibly hurtful because I remember telling her in so many different ways and at many times, even before the passing of her mother, that I was okay with her family's involvement, but she needed to keep some distance between our relationship and her father in particular. She said one time her father said something nasty directed at her ex-boyfriend, and after that time, he refused to be in the same room as him, and I told her that he was right in doing that. I reminded her of the time when her father told me, after 5 years of our relationship, that he did not want to give me his blessing for asking you to marry. I don't know why, but hearing her say that she saw her family's behavior towards her boyfriend, and that was what helped me see how toxic they can be, it was really hurtful. Like my feelings and my protest did not matter to her as much. I told her that, and she had tears in her eyes. She said she was sorry. She said she was young and inexperienced at first, and then after her mother had passed, she was scared of losing her father, and anything I said about him was difficult for her to hear because of that. She was a very selfish person and told me it was a difficult thing for her to realize she had ignored my needs in the marriage. She said if we date again, she wants us to see a relationship counselor together, and by herself also to make our dating life better. I think it's a good idea to talk to someone who can help me explain my side of things to her. I'm not confident how helpful the conversation can be if it's just the two of us. She has a tendency to talk over me, or to agree with me, but not let me say my part. I want to talk to her about it too, but I think it's better if I wait until we have found some relationship counselor. But still, I think the outcome of the conversation was good. I want to ask her out on a date tonight, for maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. She went back to her house last night, and I missed her presence around me a lot. I don't know if that's a good sign or if it means I'm too lonely. When she was here yesterday, she got a call from one of her siblings and she mentioned me by name. I was not listening in, but I just heard her say my name, so my ears picked up on that part. I feel like that should be a good sign too. Or maybe I'm just desperate to look for anything positive as a sign. She wanted to come over today, but I told her I'm feeling much better and she doesn't need to cook for me today. Also, I spent the morning today looking through our old pictures together. It was nice to remember the person she used to be. I feel like yesterday I saw a little bit of that person in her. Am I wrong to want to start something so soon? I know I said previously that I would wait, but waiting for the sake of it seems pointless. I do want to take things slow because I want us to find a relationship counselor soon, but I'm afraid I will lose her if I show no interest. OP's ex-wife dumped her boyfriend because he was calling her out and her mostly crappy family on their toxic behavior. Then she's immediately love-bombing her ex-husband, the guy who put up with their crap near silently for years. She wants her doormat back, the one that was easy to deal with because he wasn't willing to put his foot down and just took what everybody dealt him. It's telling that she spent 2 months hitting up her ex-husband while still dating the other guy, when prior to that, they had nothing but a couple of chance encounters since the divorce. I feel like OP is letting his loneliness and isolation push him back towards a poisoned well. I wish him the best, and I suspect the best for him right now is to not jump back into a relationship that failed for unaddressed reasons. Yes, the father is gone now, but the ex-wife is still the same person who let her father break their marriage. Bro gets away from this toxic family just to fall right back into it. Why? My oldest daughter is demanding to use my younger daughter's wedding fund to buy a house. Me, 59 male, and my wife, who's 53, have two daughters who we'll call Rose and Lily. They're 27 and 24. They both earn roughly the same amount of money, which is quite a lot for their ages. Rose has a 2-year-old and a husband who earns a fair bit less than her, and Lily has a boyfriend who earns a bit more than her. They both inherited a big chunk of money from my mother, enough for a 10 to 15% deposit on a house they could realistically buy. Rose has always lived beyond her means, and certainly her husband's. They've alluded to using some of their house savings when their daughter, Poppy, was born, despite my wife looking after Poppy full-time while my daughter worked. Her husband has recently confessed he hasn't saved a penny in almost 10 years they've been together. On the other hand, Lily and her boyfriend have almost doubled the original amount saved and never seem to have any issues with money, whilst we constantly seem to be helping out Rose. Both girls are looking at buying houses. Lily and her boyfriend have been approved for a lovely house with a 25% deposit. Rose also had an offer accepted, but as it turned out, due to commuting costs and childcare from moving away, adding up to almost the cost of another mortgage, they will only be able to get a mortgage for roughly half of what they thought. And they only have 5%. Rose told Lily this and asked how on earth she had been accepted on a bigger house as a younger couple. Lily was honest and told her how much she made as a couple and how much they were putting down, and Rose broke down a little. She asked how much we had given Lily, and we told her nothing extra. That night, my wife and I were talking, and she said she didn't realize how badly Rose was financially and how well Lily is doing. We had paid for Rose's wedding and planned to do so for Lily too, but so far she's insisted she doesn't want or need it. I want to keep that money so we can still offer it to her when the time comes, even if Lily won't accept it, but my wife wants to give the money to Rose as she says having a baby makes it a lot harder for Rose, and she doesn't want the money to go to waste when our only grandchild doesn't have a home. Not the jerk. Taking the money earmarked for Lily's wedding and giving it to Rose is literally throwing the good money after the bad. The difference between the two sisters is not how much they earn, but how well they manage what they have. Lily and her partner are financially savvy and responsible, and Rose and her husband are not. No matter how much money you give Rose, it will go to waste. Not the jerk. But even if Lily turns down the money, you aren't doing Rose any favors. This isn't the case of someone losing their job and struggling, or someone getting in debt after an injury or an illness. This is someone who lived outside of their means and never saved a dime in a decade. I wouldn't be surprised if you have to keep bailing her out if she doesn't learn how to become a fiscally responsible adult. Your wife is the jerk. She's actively enabling your oldest in her bad decisions. The child does not suffer from homelessness. She's almost 30. It's time to put some boundaries down. Stop helping her live over her means. Teach her the reality of life. Your eldest is clearly the golden child of your life. You go, sir. Keep things equal. If your youngest doesn't want the money, put it in a trust fund for her future, kids or not. If the eldest can't budget, it's not the youngest's duty to sacrifice nonstop for her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Hey Reddit boy, when dad pays for the wedding, do you think he should get to invite some of his friends? Don't try me, Karen. Am I the jerk for correcting the woman my friend is dating about her status in his life? My longtime friend Joey, 33 male, and I, 31 female, work for a horse breeding and training facility. The job comes with a nice house that's on the property. We get to live in it for free, and we have for 6 years. When I say nice, I mean 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, dual master with a pool and a hot tub. Kind of dated, but it would probably be considered a mansion by some. There are some catches. Basically, it doubles as a bed and breakfast for out-of-town clients. Especially during show season, we're expected to do a lot of cooking and entertaining there. But we both love it, which is why we stay here. I don't really date much. I'm more of an independent person by nature and a homebody. Joey is kind of the opposite. He's got a lot of disposable income, and he kind of lives the player lifestyle when he has time to. But our jobs are taxing, so we spend a lot of the time just hanging out together at the house, smoking and playing video games. He's my buddy. We spend most days together when he isn't on the road. He's really upfront about not wanting a relationship with the women he sees. I do know this. Dude is on like every dating site. The issue is, he will occasionally have women he sees regularly, and they sometimes will get the impression things are progressing. And I usually start becoming someone they don't like being around so much and start to ask why I live there. He's currently seen 4 different women periodically, 2 of them quite regularly. They're aware that he does not consider it a relationship, but he also doesn't tell them if, when, or how many others there are, and kind of just avoids that topic with them. Recently, one came over, Kelly, who's 36, and he was finishing up with a client in the barn. I invited her in, got her a drink, and invited her to watch TV with me while she waited for him. When we were talking, she started asking about my relationship and if I planned to move out of Joey's house. I'm assuming she worded it that way because Joey is the head trainer at the farm, so he's kind of the star of the show. I'm the manager, so much less glamorous position, but I do make more than him. I told her it was both of our house, not just his, and I didn't have any plans to move out. She then said, "It's just weird that at his age, he would want a female roommate when he's in a relationship." I said, "He's in a relationship?" Her response was that it wasn't official, but they pretty much were. I told her that was news to me. That seemed to offend her, and she said, "Well, maybe you didn't know because you aren't the most important woman in his life. He doesn't have to get your permission." I said, "You're right, he doesn't. I actually don't care. I'm just surprised because if I had to rank the chicks he's currently seeing, you're maybe number 2. This obviously didn't go over well, and she ended up leaving. Ouch. She called Joey, and things there ended. He told me that he was not aware they were basically in a relationship, and said knowing that, he's glad it ended. Our other friend/coworker says it was a jerk thing to say to her. I didn't like her implying that I wasn't welcome in my own home, so I corrected some of her inaccurate beliefs about the situation, and it was the truth. Well, almost. Joey said she was more like number 3. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but I have no idea how he manages to have that much energy to entertain that many people. Not the jerk, and I was totally cracking up at the fact that she thought she could act like the mistress of the house and try to push you out. Great job schooling her. The moment when she realized she wasn't even a side character, but she was acting like the main character. I mean, yeah, you could have handled that better. I 100% believe your friend isn't being as honest with these women as you're trying to get us to think he is. He needs to be honest with these people, and not in a way that embarrasses them and makes them feel bad the way that you did. Everyone sucks here, including you and your friend, who seems like a jerk. Being completely passive-aggressive to a woman who likely is being misled by her friend in the first place. Don't get me wrong, the woman was showcasing heavy insecurities and projecting it upon OP, but OP didn't need to push it as hard as she did. There's ways of handling unpleasant people that don't require acting how she did. I would have just said, "I don't appreciate you questioning why I'm living where I am just because you're spending time with my roommate. If you have questions about that, you should probably talk to him, because I'm not here for you to overstep your boundaries with, and I won't sit here having you speak to me like that." Okay, you are all jerks. Straggling along 5 women at the same time as if it's funny, fair, or a joke? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP, her roommate, or his girlfriend? Well, she's not actually his girlfriend, she's just one of his, circle, I guess? Please let us know. If you just want to hook up with people and aren't actually interested in a relationship, always make that clear to them. Am I the jerk for yelling at my family for getting me a birthday cake I don't want for the 15th year in a row? Unfortunately, I, 18 female, was born a day after my cousin, who's 20 female. Ever since I was little, my needs for my birthday were always outshined by hers. We always did family events to celebrate our birthdays since we were the eldest kids in the family, so we just kind of shared our birthday party. We had the same cake. My family either never wrote my name on it or would messily scribble it on at the last minute. Party decorations and games catered to her taste, and mostly all gifts would be for her. I just usually ended up getting a $10 gift card for Walmart or something, while she always got dolls, games for her Nintendo DS, and even a puppy one time. I always felt like I didn't matter for my birthday. Even my quinceañera fell flat, since my family went all out making my cousin feel like the most special girl in the world. But my cousin was always nice to me, and she would give me some of her gifts just to put a smile on my face. This year was my 18th birthday, and all my relatives were gathered in one place to celebrate me and my cousin's birthdays. My mother had promised me my own separate cake and that it would be an Oreo ice cream cake, my favorite. So I was excited. When my abuela gathered the family together to blow out the candles and sing happy birthday, My cousin and I got in our respective spots. They started singing while my mother brought a cake to the table and placed it in front of my cousin. It was a strawberry cheesecake. After we got done singing, my cousin blew out her candles and everybody clapped. My aunt started to cut the cake, and I would audibly ask about my cake. My entire family looks confused, and they all say, "This cake is for the both of you." My cousin spoke up, saying, "But it only has my name on it." I looked at my mom, who had a "what?" expression on her face. I asked about the cake, and she told me, "You don't need the extra sugar." At that point, I just lost it, screaming at my family members and calling them all jerks. I cried about how this is the 15th year in a row that they've left me out and forgot about me, and how they ruined my birthday by always prioritizing my cousin. My cousin and little brother also jumped in and defended me, saying that I'm always never thought of. My abuela had the audacity to deliberately interrupt me, telling me to sit down and stop yelling. Through anger, I yelled that I never wanted to see any of them again, and I stormed off. My cousin and brother followed me, all comforting me while I cried my eyes out. This happened a few days ago, and I've been receiving angry messages from my family members calling me an ungrateful jerk. I'm at my cousin's apartment right now writing this, all while texting my little brother to vent. Reddit, am I the jerk for yelling at my family for not giving me the cake that I've wanted for nearly my entire lifetime? Edit. After reading the replies, my cousin and I have made the decision to block all of the toxic family members and go no contact. I'll be living at my cousin's apartment now, and we're working on finding me a job. Final edit. I won't be responding to any more comments, but just know that I'm in a safe place now, and we're working on where to go from here. Not just a job, but finding a way to afford college for me and such. Your cousin and brother sound like the only reasonable people. Maybe you could go out, just the three of you, for cake. OP. Funny enough, that's exactly what happened after I walked off. My cousin took my brother and I back to her apartment, and she went to our local Walmart to get me an Oreo ice cream cake, as well as 18 candles. She sang Feliz Cumpleaños to me and gave me $100. Where are your parents in all of this? Why have they let this happen over the years? OP. My parents funded the parties, as well as my aunt, uncle, and abuela. I remember asking them why I never got my own cake when I was 11, and they simply told me, "We just don't have enough money." But that's a lie, since our house that I've grown up in is pretty big. They have 2 BMWs in the driveway, and my little brother is going to private school soon. Did your mom forget? Is she just too broke? OP. It seemed like she just didn't want to get it. She even texted me, "Can't believe you're mad that I didn't get you a darn cake. You didn't need it anyways." Why is everyone against you? What is the root of this favoritism? Is there any context? OP. I hate to make this a self-pity party, but I'll tell you what's happened to me growing up. I was kind of an unwanted kid by my dad since he always wanted a son, and I wasn't feminine enough for my mother. I even remember when I turned 6 that my parents just kind of put me to the side after my little brother was born. I've never really felt like I earned the spotlight enough. They would always congratulate my brother when he made an accomplishment, but mine just kind of fell flat. My parents are the type that believe that art isn't a real job, so they just kind of shook me away whenever I showed them a drawing I made. And my mother would always make offhand comments about how much she wishes that I was like my cousin, who's more feminine, traditionally ladylike, and was an academic scholar back in school. I was basically a C- average student, tomboyish, and kind of average looking in appearance. I get that I'm not the perfect kid, but I kind of wish my parents would at least treat me like their kid, you know? Growing up, my parents always compared me to my cousin. Emily has better grades, her pictures look prettier, her blonde locks are gorgeous. You're going into art? Well, she's going into medical school. I've never resented my cousin for being better, but I hated my parents constantly shoving it in my face. I'm 25 female. My boyfriend, who's 25, of 12 years, has told me he's had a baby. How do I get over this? I've been with my boyfriend since we were both in middle school. I always imagined we would be together forever. He's the only guy I've been with. He's the only boyfriend I've ever had. I've given up so much for him. I didn't pursue my chosen career and go to uni as it would have meant moving away from him. I passed up the opportunity to move abroad with my family, and I now have no family living in this country anymore. I passed up going traveling and nights out with friends on what should have been the best years of my life. We own a house together, we split the mortgage, but I put the full $10,000 deposit down as I am in a financially better position than him. I always envisioned growing old with him, spending my life with him, having kids with him. We briefly broke up in December, early January for a few weeks after an argument. He went out and hooked up with somebody else, but didn't tell me. We just got back together and nothing was said. Yesterday, he speaks to me very upset and tells me that in September, the woman that he had hooked up with had a baby. I asked why he didn't tell me sooner, and he said because he doubted the kid was his and he wanted to block it all out, so he was ignoring her. But the girl contacted his mother, and his mother had a grandparent DNA test done and proved she's the grandmother. Ever since, his mom has been arguing with him about being involved, as she sees the baby every weekend and is telling him that he needs to tell me. He only told me because his mom said if he didn't, then she would. I don't know how to handle this. Boyfriend is crying, saying he was trapped, that she had told him there was no way she could get pregnant. He's saying he's not ready and he doesn't want to lose me and is making threats on himself if I leave him. I don't know what to do. Do I forget these past 12 years and all I've ever known and move on? Or do I forgive him and try to make this work? Edit. I did message the girl, probably against my better judgment, and asked how we could move forward, and I sent her my best wishes. She just said that she doesn't care if he does or doesn't want to be involved, and that the door's open, but she's glad his family are involved. Then she blocked me. I don't want a stepkid at all. I don't even want a kid of my own for at least another 5 years. I asked him how we would move on from this, and he said, "We'll just pretend the kid doesn't exist and go on about our lives," which disgusted me because I never thought he was the type of coward to abandon his kid like this, and I don't want to be seen as enabling him to do that. I truly believe even if I was out of his life, he wouldn't see the kid, and with us still together in that situation, I'd be seen as the evil one and like I somehow condone his actions. I envisioned him as a strong man of good character, and the fact he doesn't want involvement with the kid and keeps referring to the baby as it, and has even blocked his mom off everything because she is seeing the baby and he doesn't want her to, makes me look at him in a different cowardly light and is giving me the ick. If he had told me when he found out that he had got a girl pregnant but they had needed a DNA test, then got a DNA when the baby was born and he had stuck by the kid, I don't think I'd even be asking this question. I'd be upset and not want to be a step-parent, and I doubt I would be involved myself for a few years, but I'd have supported him and accepted his mistake. The way he's gone about it has ruined everything. If he truly loved me and cared about me, he would have told me from day one. Honey, you're done. You're still so young. You can do better than this. You will do better without this. 1. Break up with him. 2. Sell the house and split the proceeds, minus your down payment. 3. Go to college. You should never ever limit yourself educationally or professionally for a boyfriend. This is a very hard lesson to learn, but I hope you take this to heart. You are young, you still have time to go to college and start a great career. This would be a deal breaker for me personally. Also the fact that he didn't tell you about it until he had to and is now being emotionally manipulative so you don't leave. At 25, you've got the world ahead of you instead of being someone's stepmom. Exactly. Get out of this. You will learn nothing from being a stepmother to help you in this relationship. The baby's mother is already against you. She's blocked you, and it may only get worse. He's been with you since you were in middle school, but he meets this random, hooks up with her, trusts her word that she can't have kids, finally tells you nearly a year later that he's a father. So in effect, he's telling you he trusts her more than you. I see misery in your future with this dynamic. Leave now while you still can. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. This the type of dude to refuse to pay child support until the court mandates it, then expect his girlfriend to help him pay it. Am I the jerk for refusing to revoke our prenup? I, 32 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for over 2 years now, and we've been together for 6 years. I come from a substantially wealthy family. I have a few assets, both inherited and built upon, in my name. My wife, on the other hand, comes from a lower income household. When we started dating, the economic difference was very evident. While I trust her in general, my family is riddled with stories of gold diggers, in both genders. So I told her if we were to get married, I would be comfortable enough only if she signed a prenup. It's not as in I won't share my privilege with her at all. I would provide the best life for us as long as we are together. She agreed, readily claiming she loved me for me and not for my wealth. Hence, we have a prenup. To clarify, she was working all that time, but with our income disparity, I was covering 70% of expenses. Barely a year into marriage, she got pregnant. We were happy about it. 5 months in, she wanted to quit her job. I supported her decision since I was making enough money to support us. But 3 months into having our newborn, she demands I revoke the prenup. Her argument is she's staying home to raise our kid and putting her career on the line, so there should not be any prenup. I reminded her that I was taking care of us financially while she stayed home with our baby. I look after baby when I'm home as well. She said that's my duty as a father. I said, by that logic, staying home with our baby is her duty as a mother and not something to be compensated for. Not to mention it was her choice to stay home. She got upset with me, saying I don't care about her at all. It's untrue, but her logic is not making sense here. She's not letting this go and keeps saying that I'm ruining her life by holding my purse strings so tight, that she deserves to be on the title of our home at least. When I reminded her it's a premarital property and if she wants her name on a title deed, we can buy a new property together when she gets back to work. Further info. I'm not only taking care of my family financially, I'm also putting money into her retirement fund. I just put my income, other than properties, into our joint account and we both spend from it. Am I the jerk for not revoking the prenup? If this situation was not covered in the prenup, you need better lawyers. Also, a prenup cannot waive away or nullify child support, and in many states, a judge can override it during the divorce if the terms are lopsided. As a compromise, you should do a postnuptial amendment to the prenup to reassure her that your kids and her will still be secure if something happens. She's probably scared that she's going to be at home raising the kids and you will leave her and she'll end up homeless and broke. It's scary. She's at home taking care of your baby, which is a full-time job, saving money for daycare and enriching your kid's life. It isn't scary until you're in the scenario she's in. She had a job and hadn't experienced the situation she's in until she's in it. Take a step back from the prenup side of things and just listen to her and realize it's a lot deeper than her being after your money. She just needs some reassurance. If this was you, I'm sure you'd be feeling similar, especially if more kids are in your future. She's still in postpartum. It's really hard. You are all over the place. Hormones and needing to feel secure is scary, especially if she's never had to rely on someone while not working before. He pays for a chef and a housekeeper. His wife isn't responsible for housework or cooking. He's offered to be a stay-at-home father while she returns to work. He's offered to hire a nanny so she can return to work. He's funding her 401k while she's a stay-at-home mom with inflation adjustments. She has full access to his marital assets, no allowance. If she wasn't stressed before about not having access to his full assets, her new free time may have resulted in a toxic friend undermining her sense of security. People with massive wealth tend to attract these kinds of leeches. I can't blame OP for starting to be concerned. Do you have something in your prenup about alimony? Because if not, you're going to be done for. The courts in most states will favor a stay-at-home mom who lost out on career earnings over a rich dude. You guys should do a postnup at minimum to cover alimony, and she should speak to a family lawyer. Not the jerk. Yeah, you married a gold digger. She was just more patient than most. You're the jerk. This sounds like a really bad and unfair prenup if the deal is she has your baby, gives up her career to take care of the baby, then gets nothing if you decide to run off with a 20-year-old in 10 years. Prenups are supposed to protect both parties, not one. And good prenups definitely don't leave the mother of your baby, who is doing free child labor amounts to tens of thousands of dollars a year that you'd have to pay for if you were a single father, desolate in the event of a divorce you can decide is happening on a whim. Renegotiate the prenup. Make it fair, protect yourself, but also have the minimum decency to recognize she is working right now, albeit as a stay-at-home mom, and she also needs protection for what she's putting into building your life in the event of a divorce. My daughter won't let me get married. I, 42 female, am getting married this year. I've known my fiancé for 3 years, and he proposed to me on New Year's Eve. I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old son. My fiancé has a 13-year-old daughter. Our kids have known each other since the beginning of our relationship, but my daughter just can't stand his daughter. On the other hand, my son likes him and has never had any issues with his daughter. I can't understand the reason, but everything his daughter does is criticized by my daughter. I've talked to my daughter about it, and all she can say is that the other girl is annoying, childish, and she even calls her names. I really can't grasp the problem. I find my future stepdaughter sweet and bright. I've never had any issues with her. My daughter also doesn't like my fiancé. She says I could find a much better man. I've talked to my daughter, and she simply says that she thinks he's dumb and arrogant. After my fiancé proposed and I accepted, I told my kids, and my daughter didn't like it. I expected this reaction. When she met my fiancé, she was extremely rude. I reacted and sent her to her room, where I told her to stay quiet and that her opinion doesn't matter to me. I'm getting married, and she has to accept it, just like she has to accept sharing a room with her new sister. She had a crying fit and hasn't spoke to me for days now. I told my sister and my mother, and they say that I'm in the wrong. I can't see how I am, though. I'm an adult, a mother, and I decide whom I marry, not a teenager who knows nothing about life. Am I the jerk? Edit. I told her she had to accept it, and her opinion didn't matter because for the past 3 years, I've been trying to understand her reasons for being against my relationship, and she has never stated those reasons. So now, I'm getting married. And for those who said I didn't make an effort to build a relationship between my stepdaughter and my daughter, my son travels alone many weekends with my fiance while my stepdaughter comes to stay with us at home. Even so, my daughter barely interacts and says it's disgusting for the two of them to travel together for hunting. You're the jerk. You just straight up told your daughter you don't care about her and her feelings. I had my ex-mom do that too. I haven't spoken to her in years. Instead of saying her feelings don't matter, get some family therapy and some individual therapy for her before you lose your daughter forever. Also, do you think maybe she's having a hard time sharing her mother with someone else and feeling a bit competitive? Has your man actually taken the time to try and bond with your daughter? I once told my mom how uncomfortable that guy she married made me feel, and she ignored it. Well, he mistreated me. It sounds like you might be missing some crucial interactions between those two. And it makes sense that he gets along with your son because now he gets to be a boy dad, but he already had a daughter. It's not too late to turn this around and work on your relationship with her. Not to mention, she's being forced to share a bedroom with her stepsister. So you want to know if you, the adult, as you keep pointing out, are a jerk, or your 14-year-old kid is a jerk who's having her entire life turned upside down against her will and is being forced to share her space, her actual room, with someone she has expressly made clear that she doesn't like? You told her the moment she met your fiancé to stay quiet and that her opinion doesn't matter. Wow, I wonder why she doesn't tell you anything. Her opinion doesn't matter, so why should she bother? You have a right to a life, to be happy, to find love, but the way you're acting is going to guarantee that this never gets resolved and you are destined to have an unhappy daughter, stepdaughter, and likely marriage. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. Your daughter messed around and found out. She's the kid, not the adult. She doesn't get to decide who you marry. Her opinion of him is irrelevant, and you weren't in the wrong to lay down the law with her. These kids on Reddit would side with your messed up daughter no matter how you told this story. Don't feel bad about any of this. Hopefully your daughter will move out at 17 and you won't have to deal with her anymore. I understand that growing up without a father can really mess kids up, but your daughter is just a lost cause at this point. And I can already tell she doesn't like your fiancé because she knows she won't get to make the rules anymore once he's living there also. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. Friend wants to use me as her backup ATM plus new updates. Next month, I, female, am going away on vacation with a longtime friend. We're going to the Caribbean for 5 nights. It's not all-inclusive, so we will be responsible for paying for food, drinks, and our activities. She asked me how much I was bringing in cash. I said $300 cash plus credit and debit cards. She told me she's going to bring $300 cash, but no debit or credit cards. She said she's on a budget and $300 is her limit. I explained that comes around to only $60 per day. This is not one of the cheaper Caribbean islands, so food and drink alone won't leave her with much left over. I reminded her that she needs to factor in cabs, incidentals, or any other activities we might want to do. And you never know if an emergency will come up where she will need money. She says to me, "That is why I have you," and starts laughing. That ticked me off. I tell her that we are both adults who are responsible for our own selves. It would be one thing if she lost her purse and needed money. I would float her money before she even had time to ask. But to purposely use me as her backup ATM is not going to work. I told her now that I know what she's up to, I'm not going to go along with it. If she runs out of money, she'll just be stuck and hungry. She needs to bring her cards with her for her own good. She's now telling me that I'm too harsh, and she will bring extra money but no cards. I told her to do what she wants, but if there is an emergency, she's on her own. Make sure she doesn't charge anything to the room. OP. Good point. I will tell her I'm not putting down my card for the room. Either she puts her card down or we both put down cash. That will eat into her spending money. She's going to hate me. Can you book your own room? OP. The room is already booked. I'm not going to give her a nice room at half price and I have to spend on another at full price. Be sure you hold the boundaries you set. OP. I am. The fact that she had no shame in admitting it and laughing is what ticks me off. So I will have no shame in holding my boundaries. Update 1. Some of you said that the hotel would want a credit card on file from the person who made the reservation. My friend was the one who booked the vacation. She put the whole thing on her credit card because she wanted the card points. I told her because the reservation was booked through a third-party app, the hotel would need the original card used to make the reservation. So she was on the hook to bring her credit card. I have no idea if that's true or not, but it sounded good based on what you all commented. She was not happy that her own greed got her, but at least she brought a credit card. Others mentioned that she was going to sulk, and sulk she did. When we got to the airport, I told her I was not going to spend the vacation in her misery, so let's hash it out right now. She said that my tone was very rude, as if I was accusing her of trying to mooch off of me, which she was. I told her to put herself in my shoes. She was deliberately not being responsible and told me to my face I was her backup plan and laughed about it. It made me feel used and put upon. She apologized and I apologized for being so harsh. Some of you said she would try to be content with cutting corners. Cabs were expensive on the island and they didn't take credit cards, so she looked up how to take the local buses. I was fine with that until we waited 45 minutes in the heat for a bus to take us to the mall. Yep, we only took cabs after that. A few mentioned that she would go through her cash in the first 2 days. You were close. It took her 2.5 days. There were several markets with local jewelry and crafts that she absolutely loved and they only took cash. So she ran through her money rather quickly. She only brought her credit card, not her debit card. So as someone suggested, I made her send me right then and there the money I took out of the ATM for her. She paid for the exchange and ATM fees. She tried it with the meals. She ordered something big and wanted to split the bill evenly. Normally I wouldn't nitpick about that, but I just didn't want her to feel like she still got one over on me in any way. Since she used her credit card for meals, to save the cash she had, I paid what I owed in cash and she paid the rest, her higher portion, with her credit card. Overall, we had a good time. We did a few excursions, had shopping and beach time, and relaxed. She even told me it was a good thing she brought her credit card. Things only got weird when I asked her to send me right then and there at the ATM before I gave her the cash, but she knew why I was being so hard-nosed about it. Update 5 months later. Xena is now going on a Christmas cruise with a group of her friends. Her cabin mate, the same one who told me that I was being mean and stingy, just texted me about Xena's plan to only bring cash, no debit or credit cards for their upcoming cruise. Since the cruise is all-inclusive, including unlimited drinks packages, Xena feels she can get away with it this time. The cabin mate wants to know what I did to get Xena to bring a credit card on my vacation with her. I never laughed so hard in my life. I haven't answered her yet. I want to respond with, "Don't be so mean and stingy," but I'm electing to stay out of it. Just wanted to share that update. Mom changed wedding cake behind my back. My fiance and I are getting married this fall, and the cake has been a huge point of contention with my mom. Long saga, but the gist is that we wanted a dessert bar or a cheesecake instead of a traditional cake. My mom initially insisted on having at least a small cake for just us to cut. We compromised and got quotes. Right before we put a deposit down, she decided that having just a cake for us and not for guests is tacky, so we had to get a sheet cake to serve as well. We were annoyed because she was the one who suggested it, so we cut our losses and opted to do tiered cheesecake and mini cheesecakes as we originally wanted. My mom would not let this go for the past 6 months. She then decided to focus on pushing for a groom's cake. My fiance did not want one. When I told her this, she said it's really only a groom's cake in name and not about what he wants. I told her a firm no multiple times because she wouldn't give up. That brings us to this week. I got a text yesterday saying she was at the bakery and paid for the order. I got suspicious because I never included her in those communications. I called the bakery today and was told by a very apologetic employee that my mom had added a multi-tiered groom's cake with different fillings, flowers, the whole kit and caboodle. We still have the cheesecake, but I feel like it'll look silly next to what is essentially a wedding cake. My question now is, what do I do? She doesn't know that I know. I'm furious and I'm hurt. Obviously, it's just a cake, but it's not really about that now. She went behind my back and crossed multiple boundaries after I told her no. Am I being a bridezilla for not letting her have a traditional wedding cake? Why should she have a cake at your wedding? If you don't want cake, Just change the order back and call it a day. And add a password for all of your vendors moving forward so changes can't be made without it. OP. Everyone I'm spoken to has either been in the camp of, well, they're paying for the wedding, or not her wedding, not her cake. I think that's why I'm torn, because yes, they are paying for it. But changing the order behind my back? I'm more upset about the violation of trust than the actual cake. It's not just a cake. It's a breach of your boundaries and your wishes. Cancel her order. Put a password on all of your wedding accounts. You are not marrying her, you're marrying your partner. OP. Exactly. It's the breach of trust that's been the most upsetting. I need to call back tomorrow and see if it's possible to cancel and get a refund since she paid in full. I suspect she did that intentionally, thinking she was being clever. Update. By the time I posted, it was too late to cancel the wedding due to deposits and contracts, so it continued as planned. And to clarify, yes, my parents did pay for the wedding, although my husband and I made it clear several times that we did not expect or need them to pay for everything. No, I don't think them paying excuses my mom's actions. My parents reiterated that it was our wedding and we should do what we wanted. Clearly, the cake was the exception to this, though she had previously said to get cheesecake if that's what we wanted. My husband and I got a laugh out of everyone's suggestions for how to handle the cake. Initially, I wanted to go to the petty route and surprise my mom by calling the bakery to change the cake design to something she would find tacky that would reflect my husband's hobbies. You know, like a groom's cake should. After taking a few days to weigh my options, I knew my desire for petty satisfaction would nuke my relationship with my mom, which had truthfully never had this dynamic up until wedding planning. I knew that she absolutely was the one in the wrong and acting like a child. And while I'm the actual child in the relationship, I wanted to be mature and handle this like an adult, if only for my own moral high ground. I communicated with my parents and listed all the reasons why this situation, and others throughout the wedding planning process, was hurtful and completely out of line. Shock of the century to everyone on Reddit. It didn't go well. There was a series of texts I received from my mom that demonstrated she couldn't take accountability or comprehend that I wasn't mad that she ruined my wedding by ordering a cake, but rather that she went behind my back, knowing it would surprise and upset me on my wedding day. I attempted multiple times to redirect to the actual issue with little success. We ended the conversation with her apologizing for a cake, making my husband and me so upset. This obviously wasn't a genuine apology or the main issue, even if she thought it was. She also agreed to move the groom's cake to a meal we had the day before the wedding, which I was fine with. At this point, we were a week out from the wedding, and the thought of continuing to press the issue was too much for me to handle with everything else on my plate. I dropped the rope leading up to the wedding so I could refocus on enjoying my wedding as best as I could. I interacted with my mom as little as possible the day of and our wedding party. While I've had some contact with her since, it has dramatically declined so I can get some much needed space. Obviously, we'll need to have some tough conversations, but I'm choosing to spend my time with my new husband and getting back into therapy first. Weddings, man, they really bring out the crazy in people. Oh, and the cheesecakes were a huge hit, by the way. Am I the jerk for being upset with my significant other for being friendly with my high school bully? Plus updates. Me, 26 male, and my girlfriend, 26 female, met in high school. We became really good friends. She was basically my only friend in school and decided to go to the same university so we wouldn't drift apart. When we were in university, I finally asked her out. We started dating since. To sum up my time in high school, it was awful. I was very lonely, introverted, and quiet, both in high and middle school, so I was prone to getting bullied. I was mostly bullied by this one guy, let's call him Lewis, and his group of friends. He would poke fun at my eye condition, intentionally embarrass me, and make me uncomfortable in front of everyone, calling me all kinds of names and just made my life in school horrible. This was horrible because school was supposed to be a safe place for me, because things were horrible at home. But he ruined any chance of it being a safe space by making my everyday terrible. My girlfriend was aware of the bullying situation at the time, and when we became closer friends, she always comforted me about it and sympathized with me when I vented about it. She agreed that they were cruel for no reason and I didn't deserve it at all, told me she hated them for hurting me like that. Fast forward to now and what the problem actually is. We were out together walking the dog, and I told her I'd jog to a nearby store real quick, pick up some cigarettes, and come back while she stayed at the park. When I was walking back, I noticed her talking to someone from a distance. She seemed to be all cheerful and laughing. They talked for a bit and he walked away in the opposite direction, so I came up to her and asked her what was up. She nonchalantly smiles and tells me that it was Lewis from high school. My heart sank. Not gonna lie, I awkwardly chuckled and said, "Whoa, you were seriously that happy to talk to him?" She says, "Sure." I told her, "You do remember he was the person that basically made my life horrible in high school, right?" She said, "Yeah, I remember, but I'm sure that he's changed and he seemed really sweet. Come on, don't be like that." I got pretty mad at that point and didn't say anything. She noticed the awkward silence and said, "Aw, dude, come on. Do you seriously still have a grudge against him? I thought you would be over it by now." Wow, that hurt me so much. It's not easy to get over years of what was done to me in high school. It was so hurtful to hear that coming from her, especially because she was my rock during the times I was getting bullied by everyone at school and home. I don't still hate the guy and his friends after all this time, or want them to suffer or whatever, but it's not easy at all to forget what they did to me. Sure, maybe they changed for the better, but seeing her talk to him so cheerfully and tell me about it really hurt me inside. Am I the jerk for this? Not the jerk. No matter what everyone is saying in the comments section, you're not the jerk for this. It's normal for you to be taken aback, having to witness your girlfriend being friendly with your bully. In fact, you weren't even being rude about it to your girlfriend. You merely asked and then stayed quiet when she responded. While I understand that it's not like she could have gone off on him that day, she was just being polite. She literally invalidated your feelings. You don't tell a victim to get over it or even presume that they should be over it by now. You're not overreacting. She's the jerk. I'm sorry. Update. I thought I should post a follow-up since tons of people saw the other post and are probably wondering what happened. Basically, everything was kind of tense between us after we went home yesterday. When I woke up next morning, my girlfriend told me we needed to talk, and I agreed. I was going to ask her first, but she beat me to it. She asked me if I was still upset about yesterday, so I told her that I was and explained that hearing that he's a sweet guy from her was really painful, especially when she knew about the stuff that he did to me. I told her that being friendly like that towards people who tormented me wasn't something I accept, and obviously explained that her "get over it" comment was out of pocket and unnecessary. I told her how him becoming a better person was kind of irrelevant to me. No matter how much he changed, the consequences of his actions will still stick with me. She listened to me explaining, and she started crying in the middle of it and said she was incredibly sorry and that she didn't think too much of it at the moment and failed to consider my feelings. She said after I explained it from my point of view, she realized she was being the jerk, and it was a stupid assumption that everything I had would just go away and I would forget about it. We understood where each of us were coming from, and I forgive her. She was very genuine about it. I know she's not a malicious person and wouldn't want to intentionally hurt me, even if it did hurt. There was a bunch of people telling me to break up with her in the comments, and I see why to some other people this would be a complete deal breaker. But in my opinion, relationships obviously come with their ups and downs, misunderstandings, conflicts like this one. So I want to forgive her and move on, especially when she realized that what she did was wrong and she apologized. If she hadn't, it would be a completely different story. She told me she doesn't want to keep contact with him after this and doesn't care about him at all. Even told me she wants to block him on the socials they exchanged, and I said that was up to her. So far, everything seems to be okay, and I feel like this helped our relationship in terms of setting boundaries and respecting them, and I'm glad we were able to talk it out. I also wanted to say I've been considering giving therapy another try for my own good. Might find a new therapist and try again. Hope that works out as well. I'm leaving everything I own to my goddaughter instead of my daughter. I, 45 female, divorced my ex-husband when my daughter, Kelly, who's 21 female, was around 12 after I caught him cheating for the second time. Literally everyone was against it, and I knew the in-laws wouldn't like it because they're traditional conservatives who didn't want to deal with a public scandal. But it was hurtful to me that my own family was trying to pressure me to stay in the marriage in order to not lose access to the money and perks my ex had provided. Examples. While we were married, my ex helped my brother get a nice job with a high salary and nice benefits, paid off my sister's credit card debt, and bought my parents really lavish gifts. The first time I caught him cheating, I wanted out back then, but my family convinced me to forgive him and that I owed it to Kelly to fight for her to have the stability of a two-parent household. My daughter was only a few weeks old at the time, and I was in a very vulnerable state at the time, so I agreed and felt stupid when my ex did it again. This time, I wasn't going to be deterred and continued with the divorce. In truth, I wanted to keep Kelly out of this as much as possible, but my in-laws and my own parents turned her against me by painting me as a hypocrite for telling her how important forgiveness is, but that I wasn't willing to forgive Daddy even when he was really sorry. I was distraught. I honestly don't think I would have made it through it if it weren't for my best friend, Tina, who was my rock. In the end, I got a nice settlement and some alimony, but didn't get custody. I tried my hardest to still be in Kelly's life, but by the time she was a teen, she was fully convinced that I was the bad guy and told the courts she didn't want to see me anymore. I was heartbroken, but kept reaching out. During that time, I also managed to go back to school. I was studying accounting and managed to get a high-paying job of my own and have a nice life for myself. The same can't be said for my ex, who was sued by a former employee and fired by his company. Because he was so embarrassed, my ex burned through his savings trying to keep up his lifestyle, which included Kelly's college fund. Suddenly, she wanted contact again, and I won't lie and say that I wasn't hurt at the idea of her only wanting contact was for my money, and agreed to pay for her to go to grad school on the condition that she sign an agreement that she won't contest my will, where I'm leaving most of what I owned to Tina's daughter, Laura, who's 18. The few relatives that I'm still on good terms with think that this will damage any chance at rebuilding a relationship with Kelly and that I should just split everything equally. However, I don't want to have the type of relationship with Kelly that I feel like I have to pay for. Am I the jerk? Edit. 1. I didn't get custody, but I did get visitation, and when Kelly was 14 to 15, she told the courts she didn't want to visit me anymore. 2. My ex came from money and had a good income, which meant he had better lawyers and the aid of my brother and parents during the divorce. 3. Not too long after the divorce, my brother lost his job. I'm not sure what happened, and I never cared to ask. 4. I'm no contact with my brother and very low contact with my parents and sister. 5. Tina is my documented POA should there ever be a situation where I can't make legal decisions for myself and vice versa. 6. Alimony is not child support, so that's why I was able to get it. Not the jerk. Your daughter has always been against you because of your family, and now the moment when things aren't looking good, she wants contact. Ignore her. And your family basically wanted you to stay because they wanted his money. Not the jerk. I don't understand the entitlement where kids think they are owed what their parents had after they pass. None of what's yours belongs to anyone else unless you give it to them. And if that's a problem with someone, then it shows where they see the true value in a relationship with you. If you want to leave everything to your goddaughter, do it. If that's an issue for your biological daughter, then that should cement what you're already thinking about why she's reached back out to you in the first place. It hurts, and I empathize with that. Just know you aren't obligated to do anything you don't want to in this situation, despite the guilt and judgment you may face. Well, what do you think? Should OP leave anything for her biological daughter or just her goddaughter? Please let us know. I'd leave biological daughter $1 in my will. That way she can't try to fight for anything else. I was told to do what an executive told me in a precast concrete plant. Some background first. I worked for a precast concrete company as a job in between high school and college. The job sucked, but it paid well. We made a lot of the massive storm culverts and tunnel pieces that are dropped in place during construction instead of being made where they are. To put this in perspective, our largest casting form could handle pieces 40 feet by 30 feet. Absolutely massive pieces. After a few weeks of working for this company, I was trained to run the industrial concrete mixer and did this every day. This mixer was 3 stories tall, mixed up to 4.5 cubic yards of concrete at a time, and was the most beat-up machine in the entire plant, which was saying something. It ran 6 days a week, 2 shifts a day, and was never maintained because the company couldn't get techs to come out on Sunday, its only day not running, and didn't want to lose a work shift to get it maintained. The only good thing about it was that all the materials were weighed and fed in automatically. All it took was a button to start the process. The most common problem was the bottom release door not sealing correctly. It would be just barely cracked, allowing all the water to run out of it, resulting in an unusable chunky mess that would need to be dumped in a scrap hole instead of being used. If this happened, the mess needed to be dumped out of the mixer quickly before it could partially harden inside the mixer. This only happened once that I was there, and it took an entire shift to chisel the stuff out. We put a mark in the sliding door to show where it should be versus where it would be when it didn't seal. The process worked like this. A cage of rebar and anchor points was constructed on a base around a core and a form bolted around it. The QA guy signed off, and the form was then filled with concrete and left to cure. The curing time largely depends on the ambient temperature. The hotter it is, the faster it cures, and vice versa. Once the piece has cured enough to be lifted, the form is stripped and the piece lifted by crane off the core. Repeat until you have as many pieces ordered. Another thing to note is hard hat colors. They were color-coded according to your role. Blue are plant supervisors, green QA, red the foreman, etc. For the normal workers, there was a choice of 2 colors. Yellow for people who don't know what they're doing, typically new or dumb people, and gray for those that do. This was about 5 months into my time with them, and I had just got a gray one maybe 2 months before. Onto the story. Our plant was starting to produce pieces at a substantially slower rate than the other plant owned by the company. We were working 10 to 12-hour days every day to try and make up the difference. Typically, multiple pieces were made per form, per day 2 to 4. We were only managing 1 and maybe 2 per form per day. To figure out the reason for this, the owner's plan was to send an executive from the main office to observe and time every section of the process in our plant. This in itself was silly. Remember how I said the speed concrete cures is based on temperature? Our plant was in an unheated warehouse in a state bordering Canada, in the winter. The other plant was in Florida. Can you guess why production was a bit slower in our plant? In any case, during the shift meeting before the executive got there, our foreman's exact words were, "Do what he tells you. Otherwise, stay the heck away from him." Wonderful. The shift proceeds as normal. Building cages and forms get bolted. Maybe 6 hours into the shift, I climb up on top of the mixer to the platform and I'm greeted by the executive in the shiniest white hard hat I've ever seen, and office attire, complete with black dress shoes, and a concrete plant. He looked bored out of his mind. He asked me something to the effect of if I was looking forwards to the end of the shift in 2 hours. I told him that with no problems, we might get to leave in 4 hours. He got the most defeated look on his face and mumbled something that I didn't catch. I went through the pre-checks on the mixer and found the bottom door was once again not closing properly. I yelled down to the plant supervisor that the door wasn't sealing again and that the machine would be down until I got it to seal, normally by chipping the concrete left by the previous shift after using the mixer away from the opening. The plant supervisor yelled back a few choice words directed at the mixer and stormed into his office. The executive had a look and said he thought the door looked fine. I told him that it did this a lot and that it wasn't sealed, pointed out the mark to him, and went to get the tool I bribed a fabricator with energy drinks to make me to chip away the concrete. A braking bar welded onto a rebar shaft that I kept under the mixer itself. No more hunting down an air gun and going through confined space lock and tagouts. Just stand on top and poke at the concrete until the door moves freely. Upon coming back with the tool, the executive told me that the seal was fine and to run it. I pointed out the same things about the door not sealing regularly. I asked if they were sure. They replied in the affirmative. I started up the mixer. The mixer regularly threw a bunch of silica up into the air. With the water draining out the bottom, this was going to be extra dusty. I offered them an extra mask that I had, and they replied that they would be fine. Well, it's not my lungs. At the same time, I noticed the plant's heavy equipment guy walking into the building and got his attention and made the hand gesture for the front loader. I got a "what the heck" look from them, and they mouthed, "Why?" I pointed down at the mixer, repeated the gesture, and they threw their hands up and they turned around. The load went into the mixer. Water started draining out the bottom. Dust goes everywhere. Go figure. The plant supervisor comes out of his office, I assume after seeing the giant cloud on the cameras, runs over and says something like, "OP, what the heck are you doing?" The mixer is quite loud with concrete in it. I got the general gist though. I just pointed to the executive, who was now covered in dust and staring at the water pouring out of the bottom of the mixer. Never said a word. The plant supervisor's head swiveled and he just crooked a finger at the executive. The executive climbed down. They exited the building with the plant supervisor leading. The fallout. The front loader was able to get the mixer before the mess was able to partially cure inside it, so the cleanup was as easy as dumping it into the bucket and then dumping that in the scrap hole and spraying out the mixer. We continued the shift after I chipped the concrete away from the door and got it closing properly again. Not too much time wasted, maybe an hour. The foreman asked what happened later in the shift and didn't stop laughing for the rest of it. The plant supervisor talked to me afterwards, asked what happened, and told me he didn't blame me for that dumb jerk's mistake, since he had said to do what the executive said. I never saw the executive again, and the plant supervisor never said what happened in the parking lot. I can only assume that the most this produced was angry phone calls and a lot of concrete wasted. I left about 3 months later, but I never heard anything else about slow production times from the main office. The lack of maintenance sounds very familiar to me. I drive ready-mix trucks. If we can keep it running until the next holiday, all is good. We have 2 slots of 2 weeks per year that the plant closes, so maintenance to the plant and trucks happens then or until it fails catastrophically and we're shut down by it. I messed up by finding my soon-to-be ex-wife's Reddit account. My wife asked for a divorce about 3 months back, and the plans to divorce after the house is sold. Really rough for me emotionally, and it still is. She started posting expectations for her next man on Facebook, Instagram, etc. And of course, it felt like jabs at me. I couldn't take the emotional hurt, so I blocked her on everything but her phone number and email for divorce and house sale info. Never knew her Reddit account. We typically frequented different subreddits, so never really was an issue. Well, today, while doom scrolling, I was reading a post and it was uncannily familiar. Our ages, our genders, same time period, same events, but from her perspective. Username checks out with her usual stuff, straight up villainizing me. I'm asking, why does she still care? Ripped all the scabs off the wounds, and I just collapsed. I know she still cares for me and is trying to hate me to cope with the breakup. She's admitted it several times. It's why I blocked her on everything in the first place. I'm sorry. When my ex and I broke up, I stupidly would check his Reddit to see if he was posting about me, and I was worried when I saw stories with similar ages that it was him. I'm really sorry you actually found something. If you're divorcing and she asked for it, it's possible that she may not see you particularly positive, and that is her perception. It doesn't mean that has to be your reality or how you feel about yourself. OP. I did that in the beginning for Facebook. I kept checking and seeing, get a man who this, next man will that, etc. It's not healthy, and it doesn't help moving on. It obviously hurts to see something like this, but as long as she's just doing it anonymously online, essentially screaming into the void, it's something she's doing for herself rather than against you. That doesn't make it feel better in the moment, but if you can at least somewhat maintain that perspective, it's easier to deal with. Things are a lot different, of course, if and when she involves mutual friends or family. She doesn't care about you if she's the one who's talking smack about you. Let her go. Get off Reddit, dude, or any social media. Just go out and keep your mind off of it. Seriously, hang out with your friends and spend time with your family. This crap is not worth it. Divorce sucks. Being stuck with dead weight sucks even more. When the divorce is finalized, it'll be the happiest day of your life. Am I the jerk for not letting our nanny leave for a date during our vacation? My wife and I had our first kid last year, and it's been quite an intense few months. My wife has been on an extended maternity leave, but on top of that, we've also hired a nanny/maid to assist us with the baby, as well as keep the house in order. She stays in our guest house. To celebrate our anniversary, I plan for us to take a trip by ourselves just to reconnect and give her some proper time away from our son. She was excited about leaving, but was slightly concerned about leaving our son behind. Her mother was going to come down and babysit with the nanny. Trying to ease things, I asked the nanny if she'd be willing to come along with us on our trip and take care of the baby, stressing that this was supposed to be our couple vacation, so most of the childcare will be hers and more than usual. She jumped at the idea, so I also arranged her ticket and accommodation. To be clear, she was also paid extra for the overtime. The trip was a week long, and our arrangement was going quite well at first. My wife was relaxed, we reconnected, and our son was close by for whenever we missed him. We would take our son and give her a break either in the mornings or afternoons. On our last day, she asked if we could take the night shift as she had met someone who had asked her out on a date. Besides that going against our arrangement, the point was to give us a break from our sleepless nights. I had already paid and planned a date night on the beach with my wife for our last night. It became a bit of an issue with her trying to guilt my wife and saying we were being unfair, but by the end of it, we didn't give in and she looked after the kid. Upon returning, my wife heard her on the phone saying that she was thinking of quitting over all of this and that we were blocking her future, so here we are. Wife thinks we made a mistake. I don't disagree that it might have been a jerk move, but ultimately it was our arrangement and she was paid extra for it. Are we the jerks? Edit. Here's some info. 1. She got paid double her usual daily rate. 2. Our expectations were very clearly expressed to her and she agreed that it wouldn't be a problem. Depending on our plans, sometimes we took mornings and sometimes we took afternoons, but on any given day it was one of the two. This was also pre-planned since our trip had an itinerary. Each of these breaks averaged about 5 hours, and that excludes the spontaneous breaks whenever we missed him and prepared him for bed. Also, this assumption that my wife and I can't and don't take care of our kid is silly. The nanny is there only to assist whenever my wife needs nap or rest. My wife takes care of most of the childcare, and I step in when I get back from work. Most of her, the maid's work, is housework. My wife is staying home because of her traumatic birth, which had complications and she's still recovering from it. She fully plans on returning to work once she's fit and our baby is old enough. You're the jerk. It's a week-long vacation. What days does she get off, or how are you compensating her for working 7 days a week? You are parents 24/7. She's only a nanny for the hours you pay. You needed to specifically negotiate what hours you're paying her for in advance, not just expect her to be available. You worked her 7 days with a few hours off here and there. That's a servant, not an employee. You're the jerk. She would be smart to find a better employer. You're the jerk. Don't care how much extra you paid. You told her more childcare. A few hours off a day is not more childcare. That's mistreatment. She had a right to ask for a night off. Nanny or not, to expect someone to pretty much take over 24/7 when they are not the parent is insane. She's a nanny and has no kids. You needed a break even with a nanny, but yet expected her to handle it all. I just came here to say that we are not in the same tax bracket. Yeah, rich people, rich problems. Followed by rich people solutions, which of course means they treated their employee like crap to benefit themselves. You're the jerk. I'll never understand how it is even possible to have human beings in your presence and not even recognize them as anything more than another high-end gadget. Just take 5 seconds to imagine yourself in her shoes and you'd know the fair pay immediately. You're the jerk. Depending on where you live, this trip could have been violating labor law. You shouldn't have brought along the baby and nanny in the first place if you wanted it to be a couple's trip. Did you clarify expectations with her that she would be working 20+ hours per day for 7 days straight? She's your employee, not your servant. Not the jerk. This was a particular vacation situation where she agreed to all the care and was being paid extra for it. Had it gone on for longer than a week without a real break, it would be a different story. Does the fact that she called it blocking her future mean she's looking to move on from nannying as soon as she finds a partner who will support her? Clearly it was the last night and you had special plans, so her springing her date plans is unprofessional and rude. However, in the future, plan to give any hired help a few nights off to make sure that there's a good work-life balance. It shows that you respect their needs and that their feelings matter. All these you're the jerks are crazy to me. Mothers look after their kids 24/7 all the time. It's nothing unusual to do. It's not like she was a slave. She was being paid for her time, which she agreed to beforehand. It wasn't a vacation for her. It was a vacation for the parents. She was working overtime and making money from it, just like anyone else who decides to take an extra shift at their job to earn some more money. Sure, it might have been exhausting, and she probably wanted more than a few hours of break, but that was the deal, and it was only for 1 week. If she wants to quit, then sure she can, but you are not the jerk for refusing her request, especially at the last minute on the last day. She asked and you answered, that's all, and she should have accepted your answer from the start. I would say no jerks here if she hadn't tried to guilt trip you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their nanny? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my fiance for not bringing me lunch? I, 25 female, and my fiance Mark, 26 male, have been together for 2 years. Me and Mark met through mutual friends and went to the same high school together, but didn't start dating until years after we graduated. He's currently in the military and is stationed in another state, but kept our relationship strong through the long distance and of course when he comes home for vacation, breaks, and holidays. We also have a dog named Willie that we got together, but of course stays with me and sees Mark when he's home. When he's home, he stays at my place and spends time at his family's while I'm at work. Since he flies home, he leaves his personal vehicle at base and sometimes uses my car. He also picks me up for my lunch break and we eat together. He doesn't miss a lunch day. He got home 5 days ago and I returned back to work. Mark dropped me off so he could use my car for errands and to re-up on Willie's food since we just ran out during his morning feed. When he picked me up at the end of my shift, I asked Mark if he bought the big or small bag of Willie's food. He paused and mentioned that he forgot to buy the food. Mind you, I work a 10-hour shift and fed Willie the minute I got up to get ready for work, which was about 11 to 12 hours ago. I asked Mark what has he been doing while I was at work, and he just said that he was out spending time with his brothers. I'm a very understanding and patient person. I was mad that Willie had gone so long without eating, but gave him the benefit of the doubt since he hasn't seen his family in months. I let it go. A couple days later, Mark mentioned he was going Christmas shopping with his brothers and wouldn't be able to take me to lunch since he was going before their shifts. My brother-in-laws are 20 and 22 and haven't saved up for their own cars, so they had to use mine. We had a surprise meeting that day, which extended my lunch to a later time that Mark would be free for. I called Mark and told him of my new lunch hour and asked if he could bring me a plate of food. Mark weirdly hesitated and said he had to go feed Willie first since it was time for his second feeding. I suggested to feed Willie after he dropped off some lunch for me since my break was only for 1 hour and I wouldn't have enough time to eat if he went back home first. Mark heavily insisted on feeding Willie first because he didn't want to upset me the way he did when he forgot to feed him a couple of days ago. I felt off. I love Willie very much, but I told him Willie was not going to starve from 5 hours of not eating. Mark suggested I just wait till the end of my shift to go eat after work. I was dumbfounded that Mark was being heavily hesitant on bringing me food, especially since he's in my car and I haven't had anything to eat since last night because I'm not much of a breakfast person. I was starving. What could be more important than buying a plate of food for your starving partner? I got upset and asked Mark what's really going on because he's never missed a lunch date with me. Mark got loud and said I'm tripping and hung up on me. I called him back and all my calls were rejected. He texted me saying he was going home and we could talk after work because he was tired from shopping. For petty reasons, I had a bag of chips in my desk that I refused to eat so he could hear my stomach growl when he picked me up later. I saw him pull up to the front of my office building and I calmly got into the car. The second we got home, I told him it's over and asked him to pack his things and leave. He calls me a crybaby and dramatic and will regret breaking up. Is he right, and am I just being extra for ending the relationship? So, he's probably cheating on you for one, which I'm sorry to hear. But he had told you the day/evening before that he couldn't make the lunch date, so why didn't you bring food with you from home? And this wasn't an issue for you until your break got changed. If it hadn't, what would you have eaten anyway if you didn't bring anything? What the heck, lady? OP, I had money to DoorDash. I just needed to know what was so important to not bring a plate of food to your partner. And the mall does not take a whole lot. He was already done with the mall to begin with, which is why I asked. Not being dramatic, he's super shady. I don't believe he was really hanging out with his brothers the past 2 days. He had other plans. OP, I asked after he was done hanging out with his brothers at the mall. I would not have asked him to bail on his brothers in the middle of his plans. I also got super upset because he hung up right during the middle of our call and didn't answer any further phone calls or texts. He also never went to go feed Willie. We don't share locations, so I don't know where he was all this time to be honest. Update 3 days later. To answer repeating questions, all gifts were bought and given to my mother-in-law since she loves to rap, and Mark is super bad at keeping gifts a secret. Even if extra gifts were being bought as a surprise, no gifts would be worth leaving me with anxiety and overthinking for the remaining 6 hours of my shift. I also did not mention that I had a feeling that he was probably out cheating since I wanted the actual thought and point of view of everyone that read this. I wanted to see if everyone's gut feeling and intuition was the same as mine without influence. I also mentioned the part of me being petty to not paint myself as the saint some people say I'm assuming to be, and to show my raw emotion and irrational thinking coming from a place of hurt and anger. Now the update. Mark packed his stuff and he left. The next morning, I noticed he left an old college jacket that belonged to his stepdad and meant a lot to him with a deep meaning behind. I could have been petty and thrown it away, but decided to text Mark and maybe even talk it out after a night of being away and letting things calm down. I texted Mark, "Hey, you left some clothes behind." And his response, "Wow, already crawling back? Throw it away, I don't want it," without even knowing that it was the jacket. I left him on red and decided to text his mother if I could stop by and drop off the jacket. She said of course and told me to come by and also pick up the gifts I'm assuming I wanted back. I came over and was immediately greeted by his mother and stepdad, who hugged me and asked if I was okay and needed to talk. I immediately broke down. I explained the situation and basically told the same story as I told on here. His mother was upset and decided to call Mark and ask for his side of the story, but also did not mention that I was there to listen in on the call. Mark answered by saying that I called him at the time he was with Nick and Devin, his brothers, and told me he couldn't leave them at the mall since he was the only one with transportation, and immediately blew up on him for picking his brothers over me. I yelled, "That's not true," out of frustration, and showed my mother-in-law the call history, which checked out at the time that both brothers were already clocked in for their shifts, which mother and father-in-law confirmed to be their shifts. One brother-in-law also shared a picture of him and some coworkers around the same time I asked him to bring me lunch. Mark hung up the call. In-laws texted Mark and sided with me. I thanked them for the memories and love and left my engagement ring with them. Mark has called me repeatedly and has sent me text messages begging to talk. After an hour, I finally answered and told him to tell me the truth or this would be the final time we spoke. Mark admitted he was seeing another woman, an ex to be exact. I hung up and I haven't answered since. Am I the jerk for telling my brother he did put his wife's wants before his kids? My brother has 2 kids from his marriage to his late wife, Denise. His son just turned 20 and his daughter is 18. Denise passed when the kids were 6 and 7. 18 months later, my brother met Catherine, his second wife, and they married after 4 months of knowing each other. Catherine was unable to have biological kids, and she always dreamed of being a mom and wanted to be a mom to my nephew and niece. My brother wanted this for her also, but the kids did not want to be Catherine's kids. They did not want to call her mom or be adopted by her. They did not want her to be the sole focus of Mother's Day, etc. My brother spent years trying to get the kids to call Catherine mom. He and Catherine applied for her to adopt the kids and were rejected by the judge after she spoke to the kids about what they wanted. They tried again and were denied by a different judge before making it to court. Things were always tense with my brother and his kids. It was also tense with the rest of the family because some of us spoke up and asked him why he was pushing this on them so much. He would say Catherine deserved to be a mom and deserved the respect for being a loving and nurturing mother to the kids. Mother's Day from the first year they were married until last year was very toxic. My brother no longer allowed the kids to see their maternal relatives that day, and they also didn't see any of us or visit the grave. He said the day in their family was for Catherine. He would make her breakfast and give her cards and gifts from the kids. Then the kids would tell her that she didn't deserve to be celebrated for Mother's Day and she was nobody's mother. My brother didn't like it, and Catherine would be upset at the reminder. The kids would also be quick to inform Catherine they never wrote in the cards. Because my brother always addressed them to Mom, and the kids never called her that. In the last few months, my brother has lost contact with his kids. The last time they spoke to their dad, the kids told him they put Catherine's wants before them, and they would never forgive him for that. They said he had no right to insist that they be the kids to fill the void for her when they already had a mom who they loved. My brother dismissed the idea entirely that he put Catherine before the kids like that. When I saw him for New Year's at my parents' house, he was telling me about it, and I told him the kids were right, and he did put Catherine's wants before the kids. I said he made her wanting to be a mother the most important thing and tried to force the kids to comply and be her kids. He told me that was not what happened, and I should be sympathetic to him and to Catherine, who had her heart broken by the kids. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Those kids may have called her mom in their own time if they had been given the chance. That will likely never happen now. OP. Oh, there's no way it will happen now. They hate Catherine and their dad. Not the jerk. Those kids must have felt they were screaming into a void for 10 years. You just repeated that scream. Not the jerk. Wow. I'm not surprised they cut contact. You got it 100% right. He prioritized his new wife's imagined motherhood over his kids. I feel somewhat bad for Catherine too. Wanting kids and not having them is difficult, and her new husband promised her the world, and in doing so, ruined the chance of her forming motherhood. Catherine had her heart broken by the kids? No, Catherine's heart was broken by your brother, not the kids. Am I the jerk for telling my step-siblings they can't seriously expect me to be glad my dad is there for them when he wasn't there for me? My dad left my mom when my sister and I, 17 male, were little. I was 4, I think, and she was 6. We never saw him again, and our mom was left to raise us solo. We found out 2 years after the fact that Dad was married again and was raising kids his wife had. When I was 13, my mom and sister passed in an accident. I stayed with some family for several months before Dad decided he was going to fight for me. After a legal battle, the judge decided I should reconcile with my father, and I was sent out of state to live with him and his new family. I'm 17 now, and I'm counting down the days for freedom from this place and these people. My dad has tried harder than ever before since I have lived with him, but it was too little too late. My step-siblings are the most annoying people on the planet. They jump to defend my dad. They always tell me to give him a chance, that he's a great dad, and I don't know him like they do. They also claim my sister as their sister and have mentioned how they wish I would share some photos of her with them because she is our sister. I told them how my sister would not have liked them calling her that. I would be told I couldn't know that, blah blah blah. Over the years, it's been a lot of therapy, a lot of my dad and his wife trying to convince me I should be part of their family, and a lot of my wants being ignored. The biggest one is to go home to my actual family. My step-siblings keep bringing up how hard I am on Dad and how great he is and saying they don't understand my rejecting him. A few days ago, Dad wanted me to go on a father-son fishing trip with him, and I turned him down. They barged into my room and started telling me how wrong I was. His stepkids are 16, 14, and 12, by the way. They said I need to give him a chance and how I'm a bigger jerk than he ever was. They said, could I not appreciate that he was a good dad to them and was there for them even if he couldn't be there for me? I lost it, told them to shut up, and they can't seriously expect me to be grateful for that. I could see they were upset, and I told them I had no desire to care about them or him or their mom, and that I wanted them to act like I wasn't there because I'll be gone soon enough. My dad and his wife were furious, and honestly, the stepkids were too. They all said I was out of line and was taking my anger at my dad out on them. I told them they were harassing me and were selfish to think I would be glad the deadbeat who abandoned me and my sister was there for 3 random kids. I said if anything, I would love to see if they'd say the same thing when one day he walks out on them too. Let's just say things are tense now. Am I the jerk? Update. I mentioned in a comment that during a fight between us a while ago, I asked my dad if he would abandon his stepkids and wife if it made me forgive him, and he said yes. I never said it to anyone, but I know I could easily have used it to hurt them. But I have never wanted to be that much of a jerk, no matter how much I dislike my step-siblings or my dad. What I said came up a couple of hours ago. Dad wanted me to spend some time with him. He wanted to talk out the incident with my step-siblings and find a way for us to move forward as a family. I was never going to agree to that, and once he figured that out, he started getting increasingly agitated, and then in front of his wife and stepkids, he yelled at me, asking if abandoning his family would really make me forgive him, because he'd do it. He'd do anything. He'd give them all up for me to give him a chance and let him try to make it up to me. He did not hold back at all. Crap hit the fan, and his stepkids are all crying in their rooms while his wife and him are yelling at each other. But I think this might help me get back to my family sooner because I don't see his marriage surviving this. From what I'm hearing, he's telling his wife he needs to win my love, and she's furious that he would hurt them like that. All I'm hearing is that the dad is terrible, regardless of the situation. I'm always amazed that people get shocked that a deadbeat loser could also be a deadbeat loser to your kids. You married a crappy father to his kids. I don't feel sorry for anyone but OP here. Steal my essay? Lose your full ride scholarship. I, 19 female, am a sophomore in college, and I have a friend, Tia, who's 18. She's in high school and applying for colleges and scholarships. I helped her throughout the college process, and she ended up getting into her top college, and she got a full ride scholarship. I was happy for her until recently. I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and she started gushing about how Tia's essay was so heartfelt and beautiful. I asked to see it because I thought she had just forgotten to show me. She showed me many of her essay drafts, but as I was reading it, I was completely taken aback. The essay was one of my college essay drafts, which I'd shown to Tia for reference on writing techniques only. I made this clear. I was livid. The essay was really personal, and she barely even tweaked it up. It was almost entirely copied and pasted. I trusted her with it, and this is what she did. In a fit of rage, I gathered all of the evidence of me helping her with her college process, including evidence of me sending the specific essay to her, and I showed it to the school. She not only lost her scholarship, but she also lost her seat in the school. Now people are calling me dramatic and shaming me for robbing her of her education. She's the only person in her family to get into college and receive an academic and athletic scholarship, so everyone was rooting for her, including me at one time. And while I didn't expect the outcome to be so severe, it was. Right now I feel bad. I feel terrible. I feel like she took advantage of me, but I didn't want to be the cause of something so horrible. I did myself a justice, but at the cost of someone's dreams. Now I'm wondering if what I did was justified or not. Am I the jerk? I'm probably going to get downvoted, but not the jerk. If she's plagiarizing just to get in, she's definitely not going to survive her first semester in college. Most colleges have a no-nonsense policy with stealing other people's work. I've seen a lot of my peers who just forgot to cite their source properly for their quotes, and they got in trouble with the school for it. So yeah, not the jerk. Agreed. If Tia couldn't honestly get into her dream school on her merit alone, she wouldn't survive it without extensive nepotism and/or wealth, which I'm assuming she doesn't have. Frankly, getting in is the hardest part in my opinion. Yikes. This may not end up being popular, but not the jerk. If Tia really copied your story, then that would be plagiarism, and it's a dishonest way of getting into college. It sucks she lost her acceptance and full ride, but she didn't really earn it in the first place if she cheated to get in. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Tia? Please let us know. You copy my work, you bet your butt I'm reporting you. I don't want the car. First off, my dad was a great man. He was just dumb sometimes. So, background. I'm one of the youngest from a very large family. My mom passed when I was 10. My dad, bless his heart, was from the generation where the man worked and the woman took care of everything at home. When my mom passed, the responsibility of everything at home fell to the kids. By the time I was 11, I was regularly cooking dinner for 8 to 10 people. I had a long list of chores. Truly, it was fine. I'm sure I pitied myself some because my friends didn't have these responsibilities, but I really had a great childhood, minus my mom passing. When I was 16, my dad got me a car. I paid for gas with babysitting money. My dad paid for insurance and maintenance. I had to get my little sister and myself to and from school. I had to do the grocery shopping. I had to get the two of us to practices and meets. I had to run chores. I was responsible for driving her wherever she needed to go. My day consisted of getting to school, getting home, grocery store, making dinner if it was my turn, homework, practice, bed. Meets were on weekends. I never went out. I was never in trouble. I was an honor student. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was a good kid. All was well, relatively. And then my dad got a new girlfriend. Her kids were in high school with me. She told him that if I got to have a car, I should be fully responsible for it. After all, her kids were. So my dad sat me down and said, I've decided that if you want a car, you have to pay for it. I expect you to take over payments, maintenance, and insurance. I told him I couldn't afford that. He told me I'd have to get a job. I said I had no time for a job. He told me I'd have to figure it out. So, cue malicious compliance. Guess what? I went and got my keys and handed them to him. I told him I didn't want the car anymore. He was a little shocked, but I guess he thought I'd come crawling back for it soon. The next morning, my sister and I missed the bus. I had to wake him up so he could drive us to school. He was ticked. We got a ride home from school. At 5:30, when dinner was supposed to be on the table, I was reading on the couch. He came home. Where's dinner? I said, oh, I didn't have a car to get to the store. I'm sure there are some leftovers you can heat up. He told me I'd have to start walking to the store. I told him I didn't have time. Finals were coming up. Didn't he care about my grades? An hour later, I told him it was time for practice. My sister and I needed a ride to and from practice. He told me to call a friend. Sorry, I can't. No one on the team lives in this town. It would be really out of the way for anyone else. He drove us. Then he picked us up, silently fuming the whole way. The next morning, oops, we missed the bus again. I had to wake him up again. Plus, he had no orange juice in the morning, on account of no one going to the store. Once again, no dinner on the table. He had to drive me to the store when he got home. Once again, we needed a ride to practice. I informed him that the meet that weekend was an hour away, and we had to be there at 9. That was enough for him. It was probably the most parenting he had done in 30 years of being a father. He called me to the top of the stairs. He tossed my car keys to me. "I've decided you can have your car back. I'll pay for half of the payments and half of the insurance. You can only use it for school, practice, meets, chores, and driving your sister." I laughed, tossed the keys back, and said, "That's all I use it for anyway. I don't want the car. Sell it." 5 minutes later, he's screaming my name from the bottom of the stairs. He overhand whips the keys up the stairs. Y'all, my dad never got mad. His new deal was he'd pay for everything but gas, but I wasn't allowed any personal use of the car. I said, "So I have to pay to do chores and I get no benefit from it? No thank you." And I tossed the keys back down the stairs. Half an hour later, he demands my presence in the living room. He calmly said he would pay for everything but gas. I'd have the use of the car when I wanted, but I had to do all the stuff I'd previously been doing without complaint until his girlfriend got into his head. He didn't phrase it like that, of course. Then he said, "I hope you learned a lesson here." I did. I certainly did. Y'all, please refrain from calling my dad names. He passed several years ago. I loved him very much, and you're bumming me out. He raised us to the best of his abilities, and all his kids are happy, fairly successful, and very, very close. Please just enjoy the story of malicious compliance and teenage triumph. Am I the jerk for buying my son an apartment behind his dad's back? My son, Aiden, who's 23, moved back in with us upon graduating college as my husband wanted. My husband's original plan was to have Aiden live with us for free, but stay home and help with his disabled younger brother, who's 16. Aiden started complaining about needing money and wanted to find a job. My husband was against this and even offered to double his allowance, but Aiden was growing tired of staying at home. So he began looking for jobs here and there for over a year, but none of his job applications came through. He'd just apply and they never got back to him. We were confused by this until recently. I found out my husband was behind all of the job applications being canceled. He'd wait until Aiden applies, then he'd proceed to cancel the application by impersonating him and using his email. I blew up at him for this, but his justification is that he's just trying to make sure that our younger son is cared for by Aiden, and said that Aiden has been a big help and him getting a job will affect his care for his brother. I went ahead and rented an apartment for Aiden and told him to stay there until he finds a job and starts paying for it himself. Aiden was hurt upon knowing what his dad did. My husband was livid when he found out. He called me unhinged and said that I was separating the boys and teaching Aiden to become selfish and care more about a job than his family. He also said it was a huge decision for me to rent an apartment without even running it by him. He's been giving me crap about it and is calling me a terrible mother for encouraging Aiden to be selfish and self-centered. He said I needed to see and understand why he did what he did. Edit, a few things to mention. 1. My husband says that since he and I have health issues, then we could use Aiden's help. 2. When I suggested outside help, my husband refused, saying he won't ask anything from anybody and that his son is his problem and nobody else's. 3. I used money from our joint account to pay for the rental apartment. My husband said it was wrong and that it was a major waste of money since we deal with medical bills consistently. Not the jerk. A 23-year-old cannot exist on allowance, and he's not a de facto caretaker. Your husband seems unhinged. You did the right thing for your son. Not the jerk. But what the heck? Your husband is deranged and you should leave him. Your older son has a degree, wants to work and be independent, and your husband is gaslighting him to try to keep him around to support his younger disabled brother? The emotional manipulation is strong with him, and I'd be concerned about what he's capable of. Not the jerk. Hopefully Aiden has changed his password and maybe even set up a second secret email for job applications in case Daddy Dearest manages to access the old one in some way. Just keep the cat. A little over 6 years ago, my husband was at the grocery store, and right outside the door, he found this skin and bones dirty fluff ball. He had a paw that seemed to have been crushed at some point. Well, he brought him home. We got him cleaned up and fed him. He was just a kitten, but devoured 2 full cans of cat food, clearly very hungry. Well, we did the right thing. We took a picture of him and posted him on Facebook, asking if he belonged to anyone, and said we were happy to keep him if he didn't have a home. Someone claimed him, so we returned him. The next day, another person found him. She also posted. Same person claimed him. New person asked if she could pick him up because her husband was out with the car. She said she couldn't and told the rescuer to just put him outside and he'll find his way home. The rescuer lived about 2 miles away from her. It was freezing outside, snow on the ground. Rescuer said she wasn't comfortable with that. Some people who had seen our post and the new post started politely suggesting that it would be safer to keep him inside. His owner lived next to a busy street across from the grocery store where my husband originally found him. She started getting angry and defensive, saying it was impossible to keep him inside, blah blah blah. His crushed paw was brought up and she said he was just fine. Then she said, "If you all think you know better than me what's best for my cat, just keep him." K. Second rescuer messaged us. She had since found our previous post and said she couldn't keep him because she already had enough pets and asked if we still wanted him. We said absolutely. My husband went and picked him up. Original owner really lost her crap then. She started messaging us saying that she was going to call the cops because we stole her cat. I replied with a screenshot of her comment saying to keep him. We took him to the vet. Vet estimated that he was about 8 months old. He said that the paw didn't seem to be causing him any pain, so an x-ray wasn't necessary unless that changed. Neutered him, gave him his shots, flea meds, ear mite meds, and wormer for our 2 resident cats as well, because fleas, ear mites, and worms are very contagious. Resident cats, Connor and Murphy, hissed at the new kitty. We named him Mickey for about 2 days. Then they were all friends. As I mentioned earlier, it's been about 6 years. Mickey has never once tried to get out. He's partial to my husband, but will cuddle with the rest of us if my husband isn't home. Guess he remembered who saved him. As for the original owner calling the cops, if she did, they told her to kick rocks. They never showed up. I saved that screenshot though. All 3 of our boys are very happy and healthy indoor cats. My girlfriend, who's 30, is upset with me, 32 male. She doesn't want us to have internet or Wi-Fi at the house. We've lived together for over a year and we have our good and bad times, and lately it's been rough. She's gone from the house all the time. She rarely shares where she is or where she goes. She spends time with me less and less. I've talked to her about this and how I feel a need for more time together, but to no avail. When we moved into this house to live together, she told me she didn't want to have internet, Wi-Fi, a TV, or a computer. All things that I enjoy and I used to love. They were like hobbies, like playing my PS5, my computer, watching sports, etc. But it was very important to her and I agreed, and I was more than willing to sell my things, earn some extra money, and focus on her and her hobbies. She much prefers board games, time in nature, etc., and I honestly love those things too. At first, she gave me a lot of her time and our time together was great. Lots of time with board games, outside, playing sports together, being active, etc. So much time outside of work was just us. Over time, she's found new hobbies, new things to do outside of us that has left me feeling alone quite a lot lately. Sometimes for 5 to 10 hours per day, some days less, but some days more. The short of it is, I'm bored, with nothing to do besides things that I'm not really interested in. I don't want to go out, but I don't want to be stuck here at the house by myself with nothing to do except chores, be on my phone, or sleep. I told her I wanted to get back into gaming, get a TV, a PS5, and internet. She blew up and was upset, yelled at me, and refused to talk to me about it. She left the house the rest of the day and was gone 7 to 8 hours. But during that time, instead of being bored again while she was gone, I went ahead and did the things I said I was going to do. Well, today is the following day, and I just told her what I purchased and did to be clear about it and not hide it. She got angry, said I knew having internet was a deal breaker, and I did it anyway, said some other hurtful things, and then asked me to leave. I'm sure I could have communicated this better, but I just don't know if I can save this somehow and still have something to do like game or watch some TV, even if only while she's gone. I told her while she was home or wanted to go out together that I would always give her and the home 100% priority, and I mean that, but that didn't matter. I'm going to breeze past her nonsensical no internet BS and ask where she's going on all these all-day outings. Does she tell you her plans or keep in touch when she's gone? Why are you never invited to join her? OP, thanks for asking. Yeah, she tells me, and sometimes no. It's been another point of contention. She has a weekly board game night, she plays some athletic events, but she also does things and is sometimes out pretty late with no willingness to share anything about it, and it's been the cause of more than a few fights. She told me she's not a cheater, would never cheat, etc., and I do genuinely believe her. Maybe I shouldn't, I don't know. And maybe I'd have some jealousy about who or what she's spending time with. But if she was more open and willing to share it, it would make me at least feel better and make it easier for me. What are you getting out of this relationship? That's what I'm wondering. He's given up everything for this person, and she barely has time for him now. Is she really that busy with her new hobbies that she can't involve you? Curious, what are these new interests of her? OP. I know it may not seem like it, but she has a great personality. I think she looks great and is someone I genuinely enjoy being around and spending my time with. But yeah, there are some downsides and sacrifices that have been harder for me to accept with her being gone more often lately. So, just to be clear, she is totally wrong for the way she's treating you. But I'm not surprised so many people are just joking about it and telling you to break up with her. We all know if the roles were flipped, people would be in an uproar about how horrible her boyfriend was for all of this. Make sure you order a replacement spine when you order your new video games. Seriously, man, you moved in with a new mommy, not a girlfriend. It's just socially acceptable to hook up with her. Sounds like she's found herself a new guy to do that with anyway. It's your house too. She doesn't get to set rules for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know. Some of these stories make me infuriated because I'm just like, how could anyone let someone treat them like this? I'm 27, male. My family wants me to break up with my girlfriend, who's 22, after how she responded to my brother's pranking her. He's also 22. I've been dating my girlfriend, Lola, for about 2 years now, and overall things have been great. My brother Ian has always been pretty weird whenever she comes up or is around. Ian and I are very close, talking to each other daily, but the conversation will usually change gears right as I start talking about anything Lola related. I thought maybe he was jealous of the time I was spending with her, or maybe had a little crush on her. Still, whenever we'd get together, he'd make comments about our age gap, poke fun at me for simping, or joke about her sleep disorder. Ian's always enjoyed a good prank. However, pranking or being pranked, he loves to laugh, and I genuinely believe that when he goes to prank people, he means it in a way to share the laughter. When he's tried to pull little pranks on Lola, though, he does things that he figured out triggers her disorder, like making sudden loud sounds, jumping out to scare her, and one time I caught him before he was going to do the shaving cream sleep bit while she was taking a nap in the guest room. I warned him then in more detail that he shouldn't mess with her while she's sleeping, as interrupting her regulated cycles isn't good for her, and at the absolute best, she's the worst kind of cranky when she's woken up. Ian looked like he understood, and I thought that was that. I threw a New Year's Eve party a few days ago and invited Ian and a bunch of mine and Lola's friends. Everyone was having a good time. My watch went off with the alarm that we set up for Lola to take a nap. She went off with a sleepy smile. I kept partying. A while later, we all heard a scream, followed soon after by cursing and something breaking. I panicked as it was from my room where Lola was, and I ran through, nearly kicking the door down, to find she shoved someone down and was yelling at them. I looked to see who it was and saw a spider mask that I unfortunately recognized as Ian's from years ago. I saw him scrambling to get away, but she only stopped when 3 of her friends pushed past to pull her up and check her before she ultimately passed out in their arms. Ian scrambled off the floor and ripped the mask off, revealing the work she had managed to do in the time it took for us to react. He started bawling, telling me that she was crazy, that he only wanted to make sure she wasn't going to sleep through the ball drop. At this point, everyone started yelling. Ian looked terrified and kept repeating that she was crazy and that I shouldn't be with someone who could do that to her boyfriend's brother. Some of my guys were yelling that if she did it to him, she could do it to me. All of her friends were screaming about how he should have known to leave her alone if she was sleeping and that he was creepy. Ian ended up calling our mom to tell him that Lola had hurt him, and she's furious. Lola's friends ended up carrying her out against my protests, and my friends were nearly split down the middle. I remember standing there while everyone argued while the ball dropped. My mother calling me for the 10th time, and Lola finally texting me that she needs space to think. Since then, we've lightly texted. She's expressed that she can't shake her fear of what happened, but she still hasn't told me from her side what happened. Ian and my mom are trying to convince me to break up with her and chastising me for not helping or standing up for my brother when she messed him up. Also demanding an apology for not playing my part as an older brother. Ian has FaceTimed a few other family members And now my aunt, who paid for both of our colleges and the house my mom and brother live in and helped me get my apartment, is taking the 3-hour drive to make sure her boys are okay, which is stressing me out even more. On one hand, I know family is family, and I should do what I can to stand up for the people who helped raise me and become the person that I am. On the other hand, Lola is my girlfriend. I adore her, I love her. I feel like I should be there to protect her. I don't want to push her boundaries, but not talking to her is a different kind of hurt. Ian is convinced he was doing a well-intentioned prank and was wrongfully punished for wanting to make sure everyone was enjoying themselves. I don't know if I believe that, but I've known Ian for 22 years, growing up, and we are inseparable. I don't want to doubt him just because love may be blinding me. How do I approach the situation with Lola? How can I convince my family that Lola isn't a threat? She's honestly the most sweet and caring person and just can't be woken up, and part of me feels like she was pushed to that point. ETA. To everyone who has reached out to me with advice on how I can learn from this, thank you. To everyone who has helped me understand that just because family has done a lot for you, it doesn't mean you're indebted to them and can't have an opinion or a life of your own, thank you. To everyone that reached out to me telling me that I suck as a boyfriend, they hope Lola leaves me, they wish that she got both of us, thank you. Update. In short, while a lot of you advised I wait for Lola to tell me her side before I confront my family, they all came over to my apartment yesterday morning while I was writing out a list of questions for them. I was supposed to go over the night before, but I texted them saying I needed time and if we could meet later today, but they obviously didn't like that and showed up unannounced. The fighting started almost immediately, and I initially was thrown off by them being there, but I matched energy and started yelling back at them for their behavior and enabling of Ian and how I couldn't believe they had sided with him over this golden rainbowed baby aside. My aunt got in my face about disrespect, while my mom cried and brother went off on me. But I pointed at my computer and yelled back at them that if they genuinely believed Lola was the problem, then they were victim-blaming idiots that I wanted nothing more to do with. My mom kept crying. I got my aunt's attention with the computer, and she got close to look at the screen. I was going through comments to write up all the questions, and after a minute, she turned back to us, really my brother, and said, "What is this?" I explained Reddit and that I'd posted for help. Ian then stopped comforting mom and pushed past me to get to the computer, asking what right I had sharing family business on the internet. My aunt stopped him and asked, "Why didn't you tell us you were alone in there? You never told me that she was sleeping." To say that all heck broke loose would be an understatement. Like a switch, my mom almost immediately stopped loudly crying and looked over at my aunt confused. Ian started shaking his head and reiterating his version of the story, which, listening to it, was infuriatingly off. I'd figured out that not only did he tell mom and our extended family a version of the story in which Lola was all too violent with him when he jumped from behind a door to give her a little spook, but he left out the details that put him in any bad light. I started yelling again, calling him a liar, but he started crying and called me a liar who was just trying to lie for my girlfriend. At the sight of my brother crying, my mom pleaded with us to stop. My aunt scrolled more on the screen. It felt like both a minute and forever that we were yelling in each other's faces about how the night had gone, how I felt he always used his tears to get his way, him yelling at me about how ungrateful I always was, etc. Unfortunately, I forgot where we were and didn't keep the volume down at all, and sometime later there was a knock at the door. I didn't know who it could be. Some dumb part of me hoped Lola, though I knew it wasn't. It was 2 officers, answering to a noise complaint from one of the neighbors. Feeling stupid, I plainly explained that we were all okay and just having a heated argument, but that no one was in danger. I did let them look around and talk to my mom and brother, but my aunt spoke up when it looked like they were just going to give us a warning. "Actually, I think it's good that you're here. My nephew has something he'd like to report." She motioned to Ian, whose eyes looked between her and the officers quickly. My aunt still looked as angry as when she first arrived, but she was glaring at Ian. "You know, hypothetically, if someone hits you without permission, that's something that you can and should report. Is there anything you want to say?" There was silence, eyes moving to everyone around the room. My aunt didn't look encouraging in a report, and that's when it hit me that she was calling him out. I stared at him, his eyes were bulging. He looked as panicked as the other night when he was trying to get away from Lola. One of the officers asked if everything was all right, and like clockwork, Ian started bawling his eyes out. My mom asked him what was wrong, I told her she had to stop babying him. He's been lying to you guys. My aunt asked him again if he had anything to report. You were up in arms against this girl this morning. Where did all that fire go? Did she hit you or not? It took a while of us pushing him, but he finally admitted to the room that he didn't have anything to report because he didn't feel like she'd be rightly prosecuted. The next story sounded closer to the one I knew, where he admitted to knowing Lola had gone to sleep and wanted to scare her so she'd wake up. I still don't know his reason why he wanted to wake her up. That he put on the mask. I asked if he knew that she had a phobia. He said he knew that she found them creepy, and that no, there was no one else in the room with them. He couldn't get any of our friends to agree to the prank, so he did it himself. He said he started making sounds against the wall. The bed was against the wall, and then got close enough to scream in her face. He said she woke up and surprised him because he thought the stress and panic would cause her to scream or hide, but she instead went straight for him. He described what happened to everyone in the room, some of which I saw had the officers look at each other and then back at him. Then that's when I pushed the door in. The door wasn't locked. I just panicked and didn't think to use the doorknob properly. I just threw my body at the door, and the rest of his story is what I was there for. I'm sure if the police weren't there, I would have fought him. I know I would have. My mom started crying even more when he said that she was sleeping, a fact that changed his entire story, and my aunt chewed him out. Everyone scolded him for his stupidity and his behavior, while the officers explained that it sounded like if what he said was true, Lola acted in self-defense, and that not only was what he did juvenile, but one of the officers asked my mom's permission to question him more as his behavior was concerning and they wanted to make sure he wasn't a danger to anyone. My mom and I told the cops he was 22 at the same time, an adult, and they didn't need her permission. He looks a lot younger than he is. Upon hearing his age, one of the officers sat down with him and asked him to talk through his thought process, and the other officer explained to my mom and my aunt that Lola could press charges given Ian's story. My aunt still looked upset, while my mom cried about how confused she was over her baby. My mom literally looked at me and said she didn't understand how her baby could do this. I already knew I was deep in the BS of this family, but I realized that I couldn't grow in the earth that poisoned me, and I needed to get away from them if I was actually going to do better and stay better. My mom kept fussing with my aunt and another uncle on the phone, crying over the drama, while I texted a friend of mine who lives across the city asking if I could stay with him. I was feeling overwhelmed with all of them, and I didn't want to be within a few minutes of the source of the problem. I also wanted to give myself space to think and understand with a clear head. I'm typing this between breaks of my packing. My aunt saw me in my room doing this, but she didn't stop me. She only asked me if I'd spoken to Lola about this, and I told her I haven't yet, but I had plans to later on. She told me she was sorry for believing my brother without listening to any other accounts and that she hopes Lola is okay. So then it was just me in the apartment. The cops left after taking my statement from my brother and I. My mom left with my brother, still crying, my brother calling me a jerk, the world's worst brother, and my aunt gave me a hug, apologizing again for how she and her sister acted, and told me that I don't owe her anything, but that she'd like to know that Lola is okay. With everyone gone, I went to my friend's house, and I'll be there until further notice. He couldn't make it to the party, but he heard about it from multiple sources. I blocked my now ex-girlfriend after finding out that she was engaged and didn't tell me. My now ex-girlfriend, female 28, recently distanced herself from me, male 26, due to mental health issues. Of course, I was very concerned about this and tried to stay supportive without pressuring her during a tough time in her life. We slowly stopped talking. The relationship was newer, so I didn't know her friends very well and decided to find their social media to see if I can stay in contact with them for updates on her well-being. My ex-girlfriend had told me during our 6 months that she doesn't use social media. When I found her friends online, I also found out my ex does have social media and uses it regularly. To my surprise, I found out that she has been engaged to someone since 2019. When checking public records, her fiancé's primary address was listed the same as hers. I was shocked and asked her about these things despite her mental state. She denied the relationship and said they broke it off in 2020, to which I presented her with a photo of them in 2022. She told me she always lived alone and bought her place out of interest for seeing new areas, not living with a fiancé. She said I was being crazy and said it's none of my business. She told me to leave her alone, and I said, gladly, to which she wildly kept on talking. I think she panicked and realized she was losing part of her support system. Part of me is shocked, happy, and relieved to have found the truth out and get the heck out of there before I got myself into a mess with this person. But part of me feels terrible for leaving her when she's struggling and most likely adding to it. I guess I will never know what the full truth is or if she was even struggling. Am I a terrible person for doing this? Update. Did contact the fiancé. Will let you know what happens if he responds. Update 2. 24 hours later, fiancé has not responded or hasn't seen the message on his social media yet. Ex-girlfriend deleted her social media account entirely with photos of them and info saying that they were engaged. She still has another social media account that is private and actively uses that I don't have access to at this time. She has added 7 posts to it just this week. We'll update again if fiancé responds, not sure when that will be. Update. I contacted her fiancé who filled me in on a lot of details. We decided to get on a phone call to sort some things out. It turns out they were together while I was talking with her. They were even still together while I was visiting her place and she would hide all of his belongings. She would only let me come over when he was out of town for work or visiting his family. He said he never knew about me and she hid it very well. He also explained the following. They did end up breaking off the engagement, but he broke it off because he caught her cheating, not with one, but 2 other guys during their 5-year relationship, one of which happened right before she started talking to me. She would send them messages and talk in ways they shouldn't have been. She did the same thing with me. I also found out the way I met her and the things she said to me are the exact same things she told her fiancé before they moved in together and got engaged. This girl told me that she wanted to get married and move in with me just the same way. In addition to this, apparently the fiancé met her while she had lived in another state and was in a relationship with someone in the army. She left her army boyfriend, who she met online just like her fiancé and me, to be with this guy and move in with him. The fiancé said he is not mad at me for any of this and was very chill and understanding. We both agreed that she is really crazy. Gee, you think? So it turns out she does this consistently and has made a pattern of it, almost as if she knows that she is going to do it before it even happens. She knows all of the right things to say to get the guy emotionally attached to her, and then she does whatever she wants once she knows that she has them wrapped around her finger. I guess once she gets bored with them or starts feeling guilty, she cuts it off and starts all over again with a new person and continues building on the lies of her past. Thank goodness I dodged this ticking time bomb. I thought things like this only happened in movies. This is seriously one messed up person. I do not feel bad about blocking her at all anymore. Update. She spoke with her fiancé after I contacted him and she told him that I lied about everything. When she got distant in our relationship together and said we needed a break, she went back to begging him to take her back and he said no. She probably would have came crawling back to me if I had stuck around long enough to support her during her hard times. Boss introduces new time tracking tool to avoid time manipulation. Backfires on him. I work in a small startup company of around 12 people. It's a very good atmosphere in the office and everyone pulls their weight and is super motivated. However, our boss likes to micromanage us, even though he has no expertise in any of our fields. Marketing, design, accounting. Especially us in marketing and design, we suffer a lot from that since he will make changes to our strategies, posts, and website, sometimes without telling us, and then gets upset at us when the customer feedback is bad and we aren't reaching our predicted goals. So recently he told us that the reason he thinks we aren't seeing enough results is because we are manipulating our hours and not actually putting in the work we should be. Until then, we each wrote down our hours manually in an Excel sheet. But with the new time tracking tool, he would see how long we were working down to the minute. We also could only log in on our desk PCs and previously approved home office devices, but not mobile because if you're not at your desk, it's not work. After our initial shock passed and our boss left for the day, our manager called for a meeting and we came up with a plan. We would do as he says in the most just following the rules way possible. 1. We would not engage in work-related conversations with him unless we were sitting at our desk and are clocked in. 2. Any questions by him which are asked after we're clocked out will only be answered once we clock in the following day. 3. Every phone call, text message, or otherwise work-related thing outside of the office would only be answered once there was an option for us to clock in, either the next day in office or for some of us in our home office devices. 4. Since we no longer have the option to shift time manually, all work minutes and hours would be clocked exactly when they took place. 5. We would stop any independent activity, like posting on social media or writing an email, and would send him everything to approve before following through. After about a week, our boss was so fed up with this, he gave us the option to clock in from our mobile devices so he could get a more immediate response to his questions. However, this of course led to us clocking in ways more efficiently. I'm happy to report that as of 2024, we have abolished the system again and regained most of our independence. And even though our boss is still upset about how we exploited the system, it brought the team closer together, and Home Pulley taught him a lesson. My son gets jealous of his sister's Christmas gift and flips out. Our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home always comes with unexpected costs, right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So for Christmas, we gave her $4,000. Our son, we gave a few different things, totaling somewhere around $800. Our daughter had to work on Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th, and she stayed with us for the holidays from then until yesterday. Our son still lives with us, and today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was here, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interests, but his sister has just passed a big life milestone where money is more important to her right now than sentiment. He said it's still hurtful because it feels like we're more proud of her than him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we were more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners and knowing that something always breaks in the first 6 months and it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts. He said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said it isn't. He said we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it isn't really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift. Furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts, so giving her a cash equivalent to what he got would be her getting the worst gift. He said we just weren't listening to him and just justifying. My wife said we didn't need to justify anything and he was being entitled. At that point, he said he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil and he went to his room. He skipped lunch, breakfast for him today, and when he left for work, he didn't say goodbye, even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated, and my son is clearly resenting us. I can't really decide if we're in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want. On the other hand, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? You're the jerk for doing this at Christmas. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings. My oldest sister is 10 years older than me, so we definitely reached milestones at different times. Things like wedding money, housewarming gifts, and money, graduation gifts obviously came at different times for each of us and were not tied to group holidays like Christmas. You could have given your daughter an $800 check or gift for Christmas and $3,200 for closing on the house at a different time and setting. Then you could tell your son, "We will be so excited to give you a gift of money to help out when you buy your first home." Instead, now it's a very disproportional Christmas gift, which is sure to raise some jealousy. Edit. My judgment is very light, and you seem like very generous parents who want to help both of your kids get ahead in life. I definitely don't think that you owe your son more now than an explanation and an apology for timing and reaction to his concerns. In the future, I would just keep shared gift opening times in kind for both kids and stick to milestone gifts timed with the milestone. Edit. After getting a lot of rent-free comments about the son, from OP's comments, it seems like the daughter lived at home until the house purchase to save up money, and they have no issues with the son living at home now and want the same opportunity for him, so I don't really see it as an applicable factor in the judgment. There was a clear invalidation of your son's feelings. He sounded like he was being really respectful and brought up valid points as to why he was feeling a certain way. Instead of being open about the whole situation, you started gaslighting. It's a good way to stop your kid from wanting to approach you about things in the future. You're the jerk. This was the big sticking point for me. Don't you want your son to feel comfortable coming to talk to you when he has a problem in the future? Is your son going to feel comfortable talking about his feelings and issues with mom and dad when mom immediately starts attacking him? Also, and this is just a suspicion here, but mom got real defensive and came out attacking hard when she wasn't even called out. He was just expressing his feelings. Her response was not proportionate, the point where she doth protest too much. Of course they don't want their son to express his feelings unless he's being always grateful and compliments them. If he has something slightly negative to say, he's an ungrateful, spoiled brat, at least in his mother's eyes. Honestly, the son sounded more mature in this situation. He waited for his sister to leave before approaching the situation and left the conversation when the mom started verbally going off on him. The parents could have kept the difference, $3,200, in a savings account, and if the daughter needed it, they could give it to her. I already bought a house 3 times and never had bad things happen that tanned my experience. It's called budgeting for the house. You don't buy a house without having some extra on the side for some unexpected event. I'm not saying my experience is everyone's experience, but OP is assuming that something bad will happen. But he and his wife could have waited to see if it happens or not. If it does, they could have stepped out and helped. Nonetheless, they should put the same amount aside for when their son buys or rents a house. It's not even a small amount either. I mean, $4,000 and $800 is a big difference. If you plan to give him $4,000 when he gets a house, then maybe no biggie. Also, don't know why your wife is so irritated by him explaining the clear disparity. I'd expect my kid to be upset if I made one a sandwich and not the other. Not the jerk. I feel like people on here hate favoritism so much that they think you have to treat your kids equally every second of their lives. The fact is, when kids are different ages and at different places in life, they'll be going through different milestones at different times. For example, if one of your kids had gotten their license that year and you got them a car for Christmas, that doesn't mean you need to spend a car's worth of money on your other kid that Christmas. That would be ridiculous. As long as you treat the kids the same in the long run and help them out similarly for these milestones, it's okay for there to be a little disparity every once in a while. Well, who do you think is the jerk? The parents or their son? Please let us know. Never ask a bunch of entitled kids on Reddit if $800 was enough for your son for Christmas. My parents literally got me a stress ball from the dollar store and I couldn't be happier. I've been sitting here squeezing it the whole time. My parents kicked out my husband over a joke. I've been married to my second husband, Mike, for 4 years now. He's a jokester and loves to crack jokes all the time. He especially likes to joke with my brother, Ethan, and his wife. Ethan used to be okay with it until he started complaining about Mike taking it too far with his jokes. Some context about Ethan. He and his wife couldn't have kids, so they adopted a boy, Joey, 2 years ago. Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's biological parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. I already talked to Mike, and I can tell you that he's 100% meaning no harm, and he just wants to try to get them to react. So fast forward to New Year's Eve. My parents hosted a big celebratory dinner, and Ethan and his wife came. So while we were eating dinner, Mike decided to tell a knock-knock joke to Ethan. He said, "Knock, knock." Ethan laughed and said, "Who's there?" Mike replied, "Joey's biological parents." Then he burst out laughing. Silence took over, and Ethan's facial expressions changed. His wife called Mike an idiot, to which Mike replied with, "Hey, relax, it was just a joke." An argument ensued, and dinner was paused. My parents suddenly told Mike to leave, which I thought was too harsh. I tried to speak to them and get them to calm down, but Mom insisted that Mike leave. We left, and Mike was complaining the whole time about how they overreacted. I called Mom later, and she told me Mike was out of line with his hurtful jokes about this touchy topic and told me that I was wrong for defending him and saying he was just joking. She said he ruined New Year's for the family, but I told her it was her and Dad who ruined the New Year's celebration for escalating the situation and kicking him out. I told her he could talk to them, but again, they were the ones who ruined New Year's celebration. She called me delusional for this statement and hung up. We haven't talked to them for days. I tried contacting Ethan, but no response. You're the jerk. Your husband likes to hurt people. It's nothing to do with jokes. Mike ruined the celebration. Wow, I don't know if I've read such an out-of-touch post on Am I the Jerk ever. Yes, you're the jerk, and so is your husband. Mike has been making silly, lighthearted jokes that involve Joey's biological parents as a way to mess with Ethan and his wife. What the heck? That's terrible. Teasing an infertile couple about their adopted kid's biological parents? I'm mortified. I'm super proud of your parents. Wow, you're the jerk. Sorry, but Mike is a jerk. Not uncommon for the jokesters who love to crack jokes to mess with people. Forget that. It's not in good spirit. It's one-sided bullying and just disgusting. It's not lighthearted or silly, it's just mean. The sentence, "Relax, it was just a joke," is horrible. Your Mike hides behind this excuse to be a jerk and to bully people, to push their buttons, to be mean, and then retreat when they get upset by calling it all a joke. You are enabling and supporting that, which makes you no better. Am I the jerk for selling my dad's house even though his widow lives there? I'm 33, female, and my father passed recently. He had been married to his widow, Penny, for about 7 years before. I was not close with my father. We spoke regularly and enjoyed each other's company, but I can't say either of us knew each other very well, for many years before his passing. When he passed, I was surprised to learn that he had left his entire estate to me. He put everything in a trust a year before his passing, and I am the sole beneficiary. Besides a small sum that he left to Penny, the lawyer said he was advised not to leave her anything in case she tried to contest it. Everything, including his house, is now mine. My father's lawyers and mine have advised that the will is structured such that it would be near impossible and very expensive to challenge. I don't want my father's money. I don't need it, and given our relationship, I don't feel right using it. However, he obviously wanted me to have it. So I intend to transfer everything over to my daughter, make her the beneficiary of the trust, and she will have that in addition to her own trust fund once she's of age. However, I do not want to keep my father's house. I do not live in the same country as my father, and I don't want to deal with the admin of his possessions. I want the legal business done and to close the book on a very painful chapter and grieve quietly. The trouble is, Penny lives in the house. Penny does not work and was financially dependent on my father. So while the lawyers say she could fight to stay living in the house, she likely can't afford legal counsel. Also, because of her lack of income, she would never be able to maintain the house, which is quite large, so I would then have to keep up the house and grounds while she lived there, which I'm not willing to do. Both because of the cost and because of the continued involvement with my father's life, which I do not want. I've notified her via the lawyers of the intention to sell the house, which has led to vicious messages from her kids calling me evil and heartless. I understand this is inconvenient for them, nor am I responsible for the people or the mess that he left behind. I'm not doing this to get one over on Penny. I'm just trying to be done with a traumatic part of my life. Am I the jerk? Because of the cost for upkeep that you can't afford, I'm going with not the jerk. Except your father, because I find it horrible that all he left to his widow was a small sum, and even that only to avoid her contesting it. Why on earth was he married to someone he cared so little about? Once you've set a price with your realtor, give her and her family a chance to purchase the house before you list it. Then, if they refuse, go ahead and sell. Not the jerk. This is the right way to do it. Tell her family you're not going to be responsible for the property and are selling, but you will give them the chance to purchase the property before listing it. I have a strong feeling no one will step up. Not the jerk. If Penny has the means, she can buy the house from you, or her kids can buy it for her. If she does not have the means, she was probably planning to mooch off you.
Imagine your partner demands you fire your maid because they're insecure. That's exactly what happens in our next story, the one that just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.